Welcome to the Bayesian Conspiracy. I'm Eneasz Brodsky.
I'm Steven Zuber.
I'm Jay Sticky.
And today we have a topic suggested by one of our patrons, which we'll be diving into, but not until after our sequence posts, because we always do those first.
And we always have.
Yes. Well,
No, we haven't.
you know what? We've always been at war with Eurasia, so same thing. We've always done the first. Our first post is called Burdensome Details, which is a continuation of the conjunction fallacy that we've been talking about for the past couple episodes.
Yeah,
It starts off by reminding us that the conjunction fallacy occurs because we substitute judgment of representativeness for judgment of probability. By adding extra details, you make an outcome seem more characteristic of the process that generates it, even though that makes it less probable. And I wanted to start out this with going into a little bit of feedback that we got, because in the Less Wrong post specifically, it said that this is one of the most controversial findings and people are always denying it and arguing against it. And I was like, that's interesting. I guess that's why it's been researched so much, but I don't know why it would be so controversial. And then on our Discord, just hours after we posted the episode, someone was arguing against it and saying like how this is why it doesn't make that much sense, which I thought brought up a really good example. So I'm going to read that.
Please. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the user, who was again Why We Cur, says that the conjunction fallacy actually makes sense, doesn't it? It's like saying Superman will violently murder 10 people. Who are terrorists about to murder 10,000 people? Technically, the second example adds extra information that makes it less likely. Just Superman will violently murder 10 people is less likely than Superman will violently murder 10 people who were terrorists about to murder others, right?
Well,
because there's many reasons he could murder 10 people.
Right. So, but like, if you told me that Superman murdered 10 people, I might find that implausible. If you told me that he murdered 10 terrorists, I'd find that more plausible because that's how Superman rolls, right? Mm-hmm. But if all you told me was that he killed 10 people, they could have been supervillains, they could have been bank robbers, they could have been terrorists, they could have been whatever, space aliens that were invading. So, like, if all I knew is that he killed 10 people, I would guess that they were bad people, right? And I think I would be correct in guessing so because I already have the character of Superman, right? Like, I already know a lot about him.
Yeah, except that he doesn't kill people, so I think it's very improbable that...
But, like, with the examples and the hypotheticals...
Or wait, he did kill people, didn't he? It's Batman that's never killed anyone. Or, like, have
Superman
they both...
also is supposed to not to, yeah.
Anyway...
But I think they both were forced into it every now and then in the comics for dramatic purposes.
And in Man of Steel, the movie.
Right, but that one was the most terrible movie from what I've heard.
Maybe because I never cared or knew about Superman, but I liked it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I never saw it because I just heard it was so bad.
It was like one of the fun Superman, like the only thing that I never liked Superman because, and as Batman very well puts it in the Batman vs Superman movie,
because
like,
Batman's so much better.
Because Batman in those he's whatever. He's a less fun Tony Stark, but Superman's not brave. Mm-hmm. If you're literally invincible, mm-hmm. you're not interesting to watch you take down the enemy. If you can move at the speed of light and are impervious to all damage, like, it's not fun watching you solve a problem.
Right.
When Spider-Man jumps in front of a car and has to catch it, you see him put the force into stopping it, right? Like, he could get killed.
Well, most of the good Superman stories are ones that don't focus on can he punch the other guy and survive.
Yeah, it's like a moral dilemma between you have to make like two bad choices and
like the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeves. The whole thing was like, is he going to save this town from being killed by a nuke, or is he going to save Lois Lane? And
the answer is obviously both.
It turned out to be both due to flying back in time magic. Yes, but
I didn't know it was the backward in time one. So he's fast enough to fly back in time, but he's not fast enough to catch Lois Lane falling off a building and whatever how she is going to die and catch the nuke.
I really want to interject that music, that magic explains logical inconsistencies clip right now.
Should we get a soundboard?
But to address Why We Cur's actual point, like, I think with was it Linda, the feminist librarian or something? Mm-hmm. Like, we don't know anything about her character. Mm-hmm. We only know what's been provided. So, like, I think that, granted, it set it up like the kind of person who's going to be active in the feminist community, but maybe at this point it's worth just like actually looking at the math, whatever you look, if you draw it out and you say, here's the space possibilities where Superman kills 10 people, and I'm going to draw another circle for where Superman kills 10 terrorists. Mm-hmm. It'll have to be inside the one where he kills 10 people. Mm-hmm. And if I were to throw a dart at that those two circles, I would more likely hit the big, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So
I think there's a slightly like higher probability that Superman would have killed 10 terrorists than 10 people generally, but I think it's such a small blip in the math that it still is just like so much more probable for A than B.
I also love how he used the Man of Steel to steel man this position.
Weiwicker did say that I think the fallacy is that instead of reading the literal meaning that Superman killed 10 people or Superman killed 10 people because they were terrorists, the way it's read when you read the statements is Superman killed 10 people for no reason or Superman killed 10 people for some reason. Because in real life, no one would just say Superman killed 10 people and not say anything else. So
well, you might see a news headline like that, but
right. So I think it's more about like how our brains process it, because if it doesn't have the explanation in the end, it's implied for no reason.
I think that's why newspapers do that too, because like there's a compulsion to be like, but why?
Yeah.
Pick it up like, wait, what? Why did that?
So what you should always think is that append at the end for any possible reason we can think of, as opposed to for no reason.
I think that's a good point about human psychology. Like, there's something really unsatisfying about A versus B.
Yeah.
I think just like as creatures that like to gather as much information, and hear complete stories.
And because, like you said, no one would just say the first one and not tell you the caveat unless there was no caveat to give.
Unless it's clickbait.
Or yeah. Well,
no, I'm raising that because I was catching up on the backlog of the Mind Killer podcast, and you guys mentioned the headline, which I heard about, that one of the people involved in one of the largest vaccine trials for COVID vaccine died.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that headline.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't remember doing, or no, I must have seen this because I saw it on Reddit and I always click the comments on anything that is interesting, but not in the headline. It was someone in the control group. And so like,
so he died.
But it was reported left and right that somebody died in the vaccine trial. Yeah. And so you can bet if we had a Superman and Superman killed 10 people, that would be on the front page of every newspaper that you could click and get ad revenue on, right?
And you'd have to go to Reddit to find out that it was 10 terrorists.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Stephen, when I hadn't heard that, so when you said the beginning of that, like that somebody who was involved in this trial died, I thought that the punchline was going to be, but not of COVID.
Oh, okay.
So like I was like already just so suspicious of that headline.
Right.
Like as soon as you said it, I was like, okay, but
I'm waiting for one who's
where's the but?
I'm waiting for one, in the experimental group who gets hit by a car, and they're gonna report that someone in the vaccine trial who received the vaccine died of a car accident.
The vaccine maybe makes you less able to control cars.
They would actually probably have to put that in the adverse events.
Oh my god.
Effects rather. One of my jobs when I was doing clinical research is to you collect every bad thing that happens to everybody who's on an experimental drug. So you could be on like a drug for diabetes, but like you break a nail and you're like my nails are breaking more easily. You got to write it down. You don't know if it's a side effect. But there was a really funny this is such an aside. Never mind. There's a funny story about something.
Is it short and really funny?
Yeah, I can shorten it.
It's both short and really funny. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, I was going to have to drag it out of you.
I forget some of the details anyways. I'll just shorten it. But there was some CRC was collecting AEs for a drug, and one of them was, there was a guy who came in and said, dogs are following me around. And she's like, I had to write it. I had to put it down, like legally. And then it turns out that was a real side effect of the drug. In males, it like changed your sweat to create a scent that was attractive to dogs.
Holy shit.
Just like, that was one of my instructors actually at the research boot camp, and she used that as an example of why you should always record all the AEs.
That is a wonderful story, and I think that's awesome. And now I need to ask, would it make dogs follow you in an aggressive manner, or because like you smell like another playful dog? Because if that's the case, where can I get this drug?
Because I was just thinking that.
I mean, what if it makes you sexually attractive to dogs? I would not want that.
If it just made me seem like a playful dog,
yeah,
and I'm like, oh my god, every dog wants to play with me now.
Yeah,
I don't care what else this drug does. You can market it as like as just that, right?
I think it was a heart attack drug, but I don't remember.
Well, I don't want heart attacks either. Perfect.
Yeah, no. It's like double bonus.
It stops heart attacks because you feel so happy for the dog.
Just thinking that too.
You.
It's like maybe that's how it really works. Maybe that's its mechanism of action.
But I do like the takeaway from Ivy Curtis thing that if you don't include any details the brain might autofill for no reason. And I think as long as we're careful to safeguard against that, that sounds like good wisdom to take from that.
I would want to test, like, Batman killed 10 criminals for some reason. Versus
just have
this
that,
second
yeah.
one. Like,
Yeah.
but then if you know about the conjunction fallacy, or you might be, like, clued into what they're testing for.
I feel like the statements Batman killed 10 people and Batman killed 10 people for some reason have equal probability. Like, for some reason encompasses all possible reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unless for no reason.
Unless
like-
for no reason is the default thing that people think.
Sure. Yeah. I think you'd have to ask two different groups.
Probably.
Yeah. Which they usually do, I think, in these anyways. So
That's why I'm not designing
That would be a
trials.
fun test, though.
if we can find some way to ask a bunch of people that somehow aren't on the Bayesian Conspiracy Discord because they'll have heard about this.
I mean, if we have a listener that goes to Comic-Con and wants to just randomly ask people one question or the other and record all the results.
But
You're right.
nerds no
should ask-
probability.
we should ask people who don't know what the conjunction fallacy is. So, yeah. All right, yeah. Anyone who can get this information for us, I'll send you $20. The first person who gets it. I can't do it to everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of the thing where comic book cons, like, bring really good business to restaurants nearby because nerds tip well, but, like, if you're in a casino area, the casinos lose business because nerds know statistics.
Cool. That's why they don't have... Oh, they probably do have Comic-Cons in Las Vegas.
I think LA Comic Con is, like, the biggest
Yeah.
the world, or the New York Comic Con might have been.
LA is where it started, so I would imagine... Or LA or San Francisco. It's in that... Damn it, it's one of the California ones.
Like the California one.
As a non-Californian, I just have San Diego, San Francisco, and Los Angeles all as one big city in my head.
Yeah, no, me too. It's surprising how far apart they actually are.
But like to me, like I don't care.
Right. They're
Like
on the coast, they're in California, they're the same damn city.
like Jace, if you told me your friend worked at Burger King, and then he told me today they moved to a different Burger King, I don't bother picturing a different Burger King, right? It's to me, it's like they work at an abstract Burger King that I don't care where
So
it
you're
is.
saying your mental image of California is like generic beach with like palm trees, some
Yes.
high rises, and like
That-
a highway.
Precisely.
A bunch of very attractive but shallow people that want to act
orange
but are
trees.
doing waitressing instead.
That definitely was in LA. There was some very bizarre people in LA when I visited.
I think
It
the
was
only
fun.
reason I don't think of that about San Francisco is because now I know San Francisco is where all the nerds are.
There's some different weird people in San
But they're
Francisco.
probably just within a few blocks of Los Angeles, so there's a lot of intermixing. In the next generation, we're going to have very attractive, very smart people because San Francisco
If only.
and
counting-
Los Angeles are the same town.
You're counting on the smart people breeding with pretty people.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
It could happen. I mean, the
What
pretty
were we
people
talking
are
about
busy
again?
being waiters, and the smart people are making tons of money, so they just hook up with the people who don't have that much money.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
they just automate all the waiters' jobs.
Oh shit.
We've solved that problem.
Then they got to start getting jobs as house husbands.
Was there?
I want to get
Was
a
there
job
any
as a
other
house husband.
anything else on Why We Curse feedback? Because I found that valuable, but if there's anything else there, I want to dig it out.
That was basically the whole gist of it.
Nice. Well, thanks for that. That was awesome.
Look how good Steven got at segueing us back on track.
Yeah.
My segue was like, what were we talking about? Let's see. There was
Conjunction fallacy. This
So-
reminds me of in Methods of Rationality when they were talking about the overly complicated plots. I realized that was probably Eliezer trying to put conjunction fallacy explanations in the universe.
and playing with what I think is called the Batman's Gambit on TV tropes, where you need like 7 or X
yeah.
number of things to line up perfectly for this to work.
Yeah.
Like Pitch Meeting makes fun of like the Joker having all the crazy luck in the world, but I kind of just see that like as his power, right?
Maybe you just don't see all the things he's trying in the background that don't work.
He
Well,
actually
because
has
the thing is-
superpowers, he just doesn't know it.
right, or like like the thing is he's not trying because he's like fuck it, I don't care if any of my plans work. Like that's the thing is like I'm just fucking around. So, if, like the guy with the cell phone bomb in his chest in the prison or in the jail he happened to be taken to or whatever, like.
There's probably a dozen things he does that don't work out that we never hear about.
Exactly. Maybe he had a cell phone implanted in a prisoner in every jail across the city, and they all blew up at the same time, right?
It would
Like,
be such a good movie.
Yeah.
Like from the point of view of the Joker, and you're just seeing all the stuff that like Batman never notices or something because he like didn't advertise it right.
I'd watch that.
So we were just talking about one way to avoid the conjunction fallacy by saying in our head of all possible reasons rather than, for no reason. And this post is basically the same thing. Like, how can we avoid the conjunction fallacy? And what Eliezer says is that forecasters would have done could have avoided the conjunction fallacy by noticing the word "and" and being very wary of it. And not just wary, but leaping back. And even not knowing that they were going to get tested afterwards about the conjunction fallacy or anything, they should notice the conjunction of two entire details combined by the word and be shocked by the audacity of anyone asking them to endorse such an insanely complicated prediction.
I mean, yes, but like I like the general theme of it, but then you could say because of or due to, right?
Yeah.
What you need is just like you just need to be able to notice that there's two different things being
That was what made me
here.
think of methods of rationality, where there was the like, as soon as somebody starts talking about a plot that has like more than two steps, or what was it, or like more than two details that have to go right.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, like complication. What was it? Penalty for complexity.
More epicycles, yeah. That was when he was arguing with himself. My memory of it
feel
is
like
now
you could,
eidetic, but
Draco's father said the limit on how complex something can be is 3 things going right at once, and since you never wanted to
Yeah.
push things all the way to the limit, the practical limit was actually 2.
Right. So like I feel like if you could just get some kind of word like complexity penalty, which might also, apply to this, that'll just jump out as soon as you see like probability of this and this. You're just like, whoa, wait, complexity penalty. The
that's
first
what
one.
makes communities so helpful, because unless you're as able to bifurcate your brain as Harry is, like if I'm talking with my other rationalist friends about my steps to accomplish something, they'll be like, wait, hold on, that's actually, you're conflating that these all things will line up this way. Having an outside view is super helpful, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he literally says what we just said, so maybe I was remembering him saying this, but Eliezer says, regarding the U.S. and Soviet Union suspending diplomatic relations, the scenario is not the U.S. and Soviet Union suddenly suspend diplomatic relations for no reason, but the U.S. and Soviet Union suspend diplomatic relations for any reason. Yeah, as we were saying.
And so like it ends with that thing about futurists and universes, where like there was some friend of Eliezer's was really impressed by this futurist who was saying like this will happen and that'll lead to this technology, and then like making all these complicated predictions. And Eliezer's like tried to just say, I think that's conjunction fallacy. The person didn't get it, so he's like, okay, so, and then I don't have the article open, but what was the thing he said about universes?
Is it
Here, I can find it.
okay? Universes replicating is simpler than universes replicating for these reasons
Yeah.
that the futurist gave, or something.
Hang on, I've almost found it. Oh, it's more probable that universes replicate for any reason than that they replicate via black holes because advanced civilizations manufacture black holes because universes evolved to make them do it. Yeah. And he said, oh. I like that.
This is where a whiteboard just comes in handy. And like, I mean it. You just draw a circle and be like, here's all the reasons universes replicate. Here's the 3 epicycles where it's your theory, right? It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that it's necessarily less likely than it happening for any reason.
The point I think he's hammering on, and it should have been stated more explicitly in this post, in my opinion, but what he did say is that people need to feel a strong emotional impact for Occam's razor. Feel every added detail as a burden, every single extra roll of the dice. And yeah, I think that's, if humans could feel Occam's razor as a literal emotional reaction, that would help a lot.
It's too bad that we can't like program that in.
Yeah, but we can try.
Yeah, I mean, like, you could try through propagating the idea of conjunction fallacy and then people, like, knowing to say, oh, complexity penalty, but, like, people in the rationalist sphere know that. People outside not only don't know that, but don't want to hear your explanation.
Plus, they'd be like, what the hell is a complexity penalty? Isn't
Well,
it a
that's what I
complexity
mean.
bonus?
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. Like, that's, you can say that to another rationalist and they'll be like, oh, like, catch themselves.
Yeah.
And you can do it much more quickly than pulling out the whiteboard. Because in most, like, in dinner with your family, if you pulled a whiteboard out, like, well, maybe other people's families are different, but mine would be like, we don't care, stop talking about the science things at the table.
I like the end here. It says, for it is written, if you can lighten your burden, you must do so. There is no straw that lacks the power to break your back. Which
like
reminds
that.
me, I haven't made this assertion for months. We need to do, at least, not probably an episode, but we need to, maybe we'll sub out the sequences for the 12 Virtues of Rationality at some point.
Yeah.
It's very
yeah.
artsy and fun. Like, it's written in like this if you haven't, I imagine most of our readers are familiar with it, but it's written in this like high prose kind of language that if it was your only exposure to Yudkowsky, you'd think he was some nut job. Because it's like, why does he talk like this? What's with all this flowery language?
Yeah.
But it's like, no, this is supposed to copy that reverence and
It's supposed to look like it should be chiseled on a stone tablet.
Exactly.
And put on a capital front lawn.
It bothers me that he chose 12 instead of 10, though. I do not have 12 fingers. When I'm trying to list the virtues, I run out of fingers.
Well, when you go through it, we'll see if there's any that we can chop.
Okay.
This reminds me of George Carlin's bit from
yes.
Complaints and Grievances, where he compiles down, where he reduces down the 10 Commandments to 2.
Yeah.
Which is
He's like,
always be honest and faithful to the provider of thy nookie, and try really hard not to kill anybody unless the person believes in a different invisible person than the one you believe in. If you break down all the commandments and throw out the useless ones, that's what you're left with.
Yeah. I did enjoy the few that he just threw out. He's like, thou shalt not envy. Our whole economy is based on envy. That one's going out.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like for solstice we can come up with the 12 virtues of rationality as opposed to like the 12 days of Christmas.
And sing it?
Yeah.
That could be fun. That'd be a way to actually remember them all. All right. What is evidence?
Yeah, I was just trying to imagine the beat to that song.
It would be really hard to crunch
Yeah.
into, but it would be really fun for somebody, not me. I'm sure. Hey, somebody do this. There's a rationalist choir, and we should link this. I'll add it to our links. But somebody in the Bay rationalist community made a like rational sing along chat room thing. And you can log into it if you like sing with people. Either, I'm guessing, like whatever songs you both want. It could be like the songs that people sing at the various rationalist parties, or
How does that work with latency?
it's explained in the post, and I'll link it.
Okay.
They built a thing for it, and it doesn't have video, I think, but the latency apparently is there's a built-in mechanism for handling it.
Remember back in the day when we had high-quality landlines and there was no latency at all? You could like literally
Yes.
hear the other person taking a breath to say something?
I
God,
felt
that was
so
good.
much more comfortable doing phone calls on like, a wired phone.
It was
like
basically like having someone in the same room as you, but
Yeah.
there being like you were blindfolded.
it added so much more data to conversations that like it made me less anxious. Like I have really bad phone anxiety or anxiety over any kind of like calls because I need to see people's body language, facial expression, tone of voice.
See, I didn't know that because I don't even like looking at people when I talk to them. So
You're probably looking at them out of the corner of your eye, though. I mean, like
I'm aware that
humans
they're there,
do
yeah.
that, and that you get a lot of data from that. And if I'm missing all that data, I get really like insecure about whether I am interpreting people correctly or if they're interpreting me correctly.
VoIP is really hard because a lot of times, like if someone wants to signal they want to say something, they do it by intaking a breath. And by the time you hear that on VoIP, due to the second or half second of latency, you've already started the next word. So then you're talking over each other, and it's awful.
I've noticed since coronavirus that a bunch of podcasts have gotten worse to listen to because people aren't recording in the same room anymore. Which we probably are doing the same thing, but there's just a lot more people talking over each other.
I think on the last Mind Killers, we talked over each other quite a bit.
I think the quality of the ones that we record in person is probably better than the ones we do online.
Definitely.
At least for our show. All right, so we have what is evidence next. While walking along the street, your shoelaces come untied. Shortly thereafter, for some odd reason, you start believing your shoelaces are untied. Light leaves the sun and strikes your shoelaces and bounces off. Some photons enter the pupil of your eyes and strike your retina. The energy of the photons triggers neural impulses. The neural impulses are transmitted to the visual processing areas of the brain, and there the optical information is processed and reconstructed into a 3D model that is recognized as untied shoelaces. There's a sequence of events, a chain of cause and effect within the world and your brain, by which you end up believing what you believe. Evidence is an event entangled by the links of cause and effect with whatever you want to know about.
And I'm pretty sure this isn't like unique to Eliezer, and maybe it is. I'm sure someone has thought of this or said it before, but I really liked this being put in such concrete terms because I
Yeah.
hadn't seen that before in my readings.
Like this description of evidence being the entanglement of your eyes and your brains and your shoelace. Mm-hmm. And then he goes on to specify not quantum entanglement.
Right.
But like, yeah, I like you have to have eyes and a brain.
Yeah.
Which,
He-
again, not literally, because if your retina ended up in the same state, regardless of what light entered it, then you'd be blind. But
Yes.
that's what he means by blind.
Yeah, and like you can have beliefs about other sense inputs
Right.
too, right? But the idea is that yes, there needs to be something that happens in reality that impacts something in your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says this is why rationalists put such a heavy premium on the paradoxical seeming claim, a belief is only really worthwhile if you could, in principle, be persuaded to believe otherwise. That's, yeah. I like having, it's really good that we're like reading back through the sequences, but I like pulling things like that out because I do occasionally like run up against somebody who doesn't think evidence is a good reason for something.
Oh.
like you get this a lot with creationists where that's like, why wouldn't you believe in God? And I was like, there's no evidence. Or why don't you believe in X? There's no evidence. And they're just like, well, and then they'll just keep arguing. I'm like, but that's the end.
The best ones are like
maybe you don't understand what I mean by evidence, but
you give like the problem of evil, and they're like, well, yeah, sure, logically that makes sense, but then what do you care so much about logic for? And it's like, well, all right, have a good day.
Goodbye.
And it on one hand that sounds dismissive, but it's like I can't argue you into believing the laws that govern organized thought, right? And the thing is, you believe them too. You believe them. You operate that way. You turn your car wheel left to move left every time because that's.
If your child gets sick, you take them to the hospital. You don't just pray,
right?
Like unless you're one of those insane people who does just pray and then their child dies.
Well, I'm just thinking of like everything else they do, right? They set things down rather than toss them because they'll break or whatever. Like their entire life they operate in logical, evidence-based ways, but then they pretend like they've got this exceptional area that they don't touch, but it's like unless you're going to draw.
That's because they don't know what logic is there. That's why I feel like you could just street epistemologize them from first principles. Like, okay, do we both agree on what logic means or what evidence means here? And once you get them all the way up to saying yes, then you can go back and say, but there's no evidence.
I want to pursue that further, but before we do, I wanted to also read this other thing he said about evidence, which I felt was an important consideration. He says, not every influence creates the kind of entanglement required for evidence. It's no help to have a machine that beeps when you enter winning lottery numbers if the machine also beeps when you enter losing lottery numbers. So the light reflecting from your shoes would not be useful evidence about your shoelaces if the photons ended up in the same physical state, whether your shoes were tied or untied. So for it to be evidence, it has to happen differently in a way that's entangled with the different possible states of the target.
He's just like Rose Path walking us to like the Bayesian definition of evidence.
Yeah.
That's why you shouldn't play slots.
Yeah.
There's
he also says this, that if photons reflect off your shoelaces and hit a rock, the rock won't change much. It won't be detectably different depending on whether your shoelaces were tied or untied. This is why rocks are not useful witnesses in court. A photographic film will contract shoelace entanglement from incoming photons, so it can act as evidence. If your eyes and brain work correctly, you will be entangled with your own shoelaces.
Yeah, rational thought produces beliefs which are themselves evidence, and then he goes on to say, if your tongue speaks truly, your rational beliefs, which are themselves evidence, can act as evidence for someone else. And I was like, that kind of, and then I was thinking about, if either of you read like Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, there's like the character of the true witness who's like somebody whose job is to like just be a professional rationalist and always tell the truth.
Yeah.
And so like it's somebody who can act as like in their what is it, first person testimony can act in the place of evidence.
I think there's a good example of this. I don't mean to cut you off, but like
No,
a month or so ago when you mentioned on the air that global warming was not a significant impact on the giant wildfires that are probably still burning, but everyone got bored with, so it's not in the news anymore. At least the smoke's gone. Yeah. So, I think it was reasonable for me to update in the direction of global warming was not that impactful on the wildfires when I heard that from you, because I assumed that you had done your homework.
Yeah.
Because in general, you're a reliable person, which is fine. And I am now more inclined to believe the next thing you say, because as soon as you learned that you were wrong about this, you corrected it.
I wish more people
the next time you make an assertion
predictions.
about something, I'll be like, oh, okay, he's not going to make that mistake again, right?
Well, I try not to.
And we all try not to, but it's like I think that if you have a source that updates based on like new evidence and or admits that they're wrong, that makes them a way more reliable source. If someone it just says they're right all the time and you point out that they're not and they just ignore you, then it's like, all right, well, why would I ever believe you again?
This reminds me of I had a boss who just liked every movie, and every movie, like, we'd come out of it with him going, oh my god, that's the best movie I've ever seen, I gotta buy the DVD, like, right now, and I just got to the point where I was like, I can't trust you for movie recommendations.
Yeah.
Where, like, you can generally, like, you can trust certain people by reputation of, like, person who, has discernment in some sense, like...
That's why Simon Cowell's opinion is actually important.
Yeah.
As opposed to Paul Abdul, who loves everybody.
I don't understand why they always have that dynamic on shows.
Because you need someone that the audience can relate to, because the audience wants the people to win and to be nice.
I guess.
And Simon Cowell has to be like the dad who's like, no, not good enough. Go back to your room and practice.
I'm going to use an example of a show that isn't garbage like American Idol, because I recognize the name Simon Cowell, and I'll mention the Great British Baking Show, where the judges are both, like, one's more Simon Cowell-y than the other, but they're both harsh and, like,
Yeah.
you know, very judgmental of it. But they have two non-judge comic relief people that are there to be like, I think it looks great.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. And they're there just being super supportive. And so, like, that's the way it should be, right? The judges should be as critical, especially if it's a you know, contest, as they constructively can be. But then if you're at home and you want the people who worked so hard all day on this to feel good about it, you want the people there being like, oh my God, it looks so good, or whatever, right? Yeah.
I just wish they didn't always cast the person who's actually like Simon Cowell is cast in the position of the bad guy. Like he's kind of the villain, like a lovable villain, but like, or Gordon Ramsay, like same deal. Like except he doesn't have an opposing person saying the food is great, does it?
Does Paul Hollywood, you said?
Gordon Ramsay.
Oh, have a reputation about what? Sorry.
Does he have a counterpart that says, "Oh, this is actually what you did pretty good"?
Like
No,
this food is great.
his stuff is basically by himself.
Yeah.
Like
That's why I have a lot of respect
Maybe
for
they should
him.
put him and Guy Fieri together.
Oh my
Doesn't
God.
Guy Fieri just like deep fry and love everything? I've never
I
seen
would
either of
watch
these
that.
shows, but that is the impression I get.
I don't watch a lot of. I'm just draw a blank on that chef's name, Gordon Ramsay. I don't watch a lot of his stuff, but I watched all of like Cutthroat Kitchen, which is hosted by Alton Brown, who didn't judge the food. There was like a blind judge that would come in and judge the food. But they would always say something complimentary about it, even if it sucked, and then they would rip it apart and be like, "Here's why it sucked."
That's when I'm in my writing group, it's the compliment sandwich.
Yeah.
You always start out with something you
Oh, yeah.
liked, and then you're like, and here's where you took a giant turd.
Here's a healthy helping of this sucked, and but your punctuation was spot on.
yeah. You need something good at the end as well. Yeah. I like this line that if your tongue speaks truly, your rational beliefs, which are themselves evidence, can act as evidence for someone else. But it's also like really hard because like I sometimes repeat things that I've heard that I didn't investigate myself, or maybe didn't investigate it
But
enough.
you tend to like, I don't know. So I trust people in the rationalist community because they'll like, if I feel like if people like see something and they haven't necessarily verified it, they'll be like, I don't know, what my epistemic status is here, but like I saw this thing. Like they won't just say it as though it was true.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a bunch of people that I know in the rationalist community are like somebody whose opinion I would absolutely trust because they would like tell me as much as they knew about the thing.
Yeah. And with the global warming fires thing, I hadn't heard of that before, so when I did hear it, I updated way too hard on it.
Well, David's also like, I think it's a fair reason to update on what he said, right?
Yeah.
And he did say it rather. He did make. I think I'm behind, but I listened to the episode where he walked back on that because he's like, I think I made too strong a case for it. I think he did. And so, but how strong his case was made, you're like, oh, he's done his due diligence, and he's otherwise reliable. So, like, I think it was perfectly reasonable. But that's why this process isn't without a misstep. It just gets you more reliably in the right direction.
I think if like, they're talking about the idea of of ideas being contagious, and I think that it's not necessarily though the thought that it's like a one-to-one, like I have this belief, I tell it to Steven, now Steven has this belief. It's like I tell you a thing, Steven like updates 80% that thing's probably true because Jace does the research, or like
I was nodding.
and then the next person down
that sounds
is
about
like,
right. Yeah.
you tell Rachel and Rachel's like 60% and etc. So like you're propagating the beliefs but like smaller amounts of them.
I think it's also really helpful if you have like a back and forth network with these people so you can update as they update.
Yeah, like that was what I was thinking too, because like you were saying David said this, he was too, then he came back and said, oh, here's an update, and then you updated based on his update, which is how it should be. That's how science works.
Well, I think you went and tried to go verify this and then found that you couldn't, and you're like, oh, I was wrong.
Right. I
Again,
looked at it and I
scientific
was
method,
like,
though,
okay,
it's like-
it is an influence, but I greatly overstated how much of an influence it was and how I understated that the global warming part.
Right. And it's one of those
quite a
things
bit.
that makes a community valuable. You know, like
Yeah.
if I go to the Discord and post something that's not true, someone will call me out on it. And I'm sure there's a relevant XKCD where it's like the fastest way to get information is just to go out and say the wrong thing and someone on a forum will correct you so you can save yourself the time of doing the primary research.
That's really funny. I wonder if anyone's tried that.
I'm pretty sure I've seen someone do it at least once. I don't remember where it was now.
Someone I met who's active in the community, Alex Chen, was for a while like the number one person asking questions on Quora, or I think asking and answering. Which like it was this ridiculous amount. Like at the peak of their productivity, I think they were like asking 50 questions a day.
Wow.
Asking or answering, but like that's like in search of positive answers. I wonder if anyone's tried to just like do the opposite thing where they just like, I have this belief that X, and see if like a bunch of people come in screaming at them.
I tell you
No,
what,
you're
this
wrong.
doesn't come out until Wednesday, right?
Yes.
I'll try and think of something to put on Discord, and we'll test this before it comes out.
Okay.
All right.
And then now the best part is that I get to say I knew that I won't actually have sounded stupid even though I said this because I said it in advance, but they won't hear it until the future.
Right.
Yeah. All right, my perfect excuse to make something up. I'll give it some thought.
Are you worried that after this they'll never be able to trust a thing that you say on Discord?
No,
No, it's just a one-time thing. You're
And-
coming on saying it right now.
they're welcome to distrust me as much as they want. I don't know. I hope no one trusts anything I say anyways. I try to be honest and reliable, but like no one should take anything I say as facts.
I trust your like media recommendations.
Oh, good. Oh, maybe that's it. I'll recommend something terrible. That sounds nice and harmless.
I don't know if you can, because there are people who really love terrible things.
I'll think of something.
Okay.
If I'd be like, oh my god, Batman versus Superman knocked the Avengers out of the water, right?
Some
of course,
people
they'll,
really
I would just
like-
be like,
but they'll never believe that coming from me. All right,
Yeah,
I'll think of something. All right.
So we were just saying about rational beliefs being contagious. It says they're contagious among honest folk who believe each other to be honest. And that's why I claim that your beliefs are not contagious, that you believe for private reasons which are not transmissible is so suspicious. If your beliefs are entangled with reality, they should be contagious among honest folk. And that is why I personally don't trust religious people. Because they have access to special revelation, and the rest of us just have to believe them. And no, that sounds like bullshit to me.
I mean, I'll trust their recommendation on how to improve a
Yeah.
recipe.
Right,
depends
right.
on what they're saying
Yeah.
and who the person is, because religious people range from this is one special domain where magic applies and then everything else just like works logically, like doctors who are religious but still like I would trust their opinion about neurotransmitters. But yeah, then there's some people who it just colors everything.
But he does say that if your beliefs are entangled with reality, they should be contagious among honest folks, which, okay, that sounds right to me, but then, like,
How do they know that you're
I don't expect, like, people in a different culture than me to necessarily
Exactly.
be contagious by my ideas.
Contaged.
Yeah, infected, sorry. That's,
I like it.
There's a word for contaged, and it's not contaged.
What on earth would culture have to do with that sort of transmission?
I mean, there are...
I trust other rationalists, but
But there can be beliefs that...
somebody
be
in my
useful in
cosplay group,
certain-
not necessarily, unless I knew them well enough to know that they basically would. Then I would introduce them to the rationalist community.
I guess I was thinking it depends on the particular belief / claim. Like I don't care who says don't mix ammonia and bleach when cleaning your bathtub. Like they're right.
Right.
So like
But then I think things like having a minimum wage is harmful. That is something that I would not expect to, for example, cross over into the socialist or even democratic tribes at all, even though, someone who says it may be a rationalist and may believe it to be true, but I don't think they should consider that to be contagious to others because...
This guy's a rationalist doesn't mean anything outside of our community, except for maybe some SJWs thinks it means something bad.
Yeah, but if a more conservative rationalist and a more liberal, or a more... I don't even want to say conservative and liberal. If a more red rationalist and a more blue rationalist met, I don't think they would expect some things to transfer over.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I mean, like you and Wes and David aren't. I don't know if it's a red-blue divide, but there's different colors there. But I think you guys, when you're not jokingly disagreeing, I think you aim to find some sort of ground in the middle, right?
That's
Like
usually
if
true,
it's
yeah.
if it's just straight politics stuff, then David plays his role as the obstinate, like I refuse to concede 1 millimeter of ground on anything about government, and but I get the impression he's kind of playing a role. Like,
Yeah.
he might actually believe everything that he's saying as strongly as he does, but if he's that confident, I'd be he seems way confident.
I think he's
for-
hamming it up a little.
Exactly. I think he's having fun, but if you guys are arguing about some actual effective,
Yeah.
whatever particular real thing,
What I've seen is rationalists on either side of political divides tend to agree on facts, but they have different opinions about moral weight of things. Someone I don't know, I think guns are bad, and somebody who is all pro guns, or same with any issue that gets divided along political lines, where it's not really that they disagree about the fact that, like, this is happening this often. It's more of how much of a problem is this, which sort of...
Yeah, that plays a big part. Like, they don't disagree about the data. It's not like arguing with, and it sounds like we're harping against religion, but it's just an easy giant target. It's not like arguing against somebody about how old the planet is. It's like, because I mean, that's just, we can look at the available truth there.
I didn't want to, like, make it about abortion, but, like, I was just thinking, like, the best example really I could think of is, like, somebody saying, like, they both agree on how often abortion is happening, but a democratic rationalist might say, and I think it's fine because I assign more moral weight to a woman's choice, where a red rationalist might say, like, I, like, actually am concerned with these, like, proto-humans being killed, and I think that it doesn't weigh out morally that way.
I find myself comfortably in the middle there. I think every abortion's a bummer.
Yeah.
Even in their events to save someone's life or whatever, like, it sucks. Humans, I think, are a special kind of
Animal
and I was gonna say being, but yeah, like, and every time a life gets extinguished, that's a bummer. Now, that doesn't mean that it's wrong to have abortions, and the least bit. You can have something where it's both, like, the truth can be a bummer, right? So, or, the best choice can be a bummer. As it is, this is by far the best choice. Easy access to abortion is the way to do it.
I absolutely agree, but I can see how...
I
don't expect someone who's even a rationalist on the right side to necessarily be infected with that belief. And I don't know, does that make my belief less legitimate because I don't expect it to be contagious in some cases?
On the other side, like, I have seen Democrats say that, or, leftists who believe in abortion say that, like, not only is abortion, like, fine, it's great, I'm pro-abortion because I don't think that, like, fetuses have any moral weight at all. Like, they'll go really far to the extreme and make things up about, like, they can't feel pain, like, they can't, like...
I think they've just been mind killed.
Well,
at that point,
then
point,
people
they're
on the
refusing...
right that are saying, like, a soul is imbued on conception, which, like, I wouldn't expect a rationalist to say either of those things. They would say, I don't know whether or not it, like, when it has sentience. It does suck that something that might have sentience, or even, like, a conception of pain, and doesn't want to experience pain, that sucks. I would never imagine somebody saying, nah, it's fine, they have no soul, therefore I don't know. Or somebody to say the opposite, that yeah, there's a soul. I don't know. I felt like that was explaining what I was trying to say more, but it might have just made it more confusing.
Maybe rationalists are just less extreme in general because they take other people more
rationalists
seriously.
are definitely more extreme on things like AI risk. Like, I think...
But that's because we're right on that one.
I think we do tend to be more moderate just because we assign less probability to things. Like, people that are able to say, I 100% believe that this is true, versus, like, me personally, I don't know when sentience appears in a developing fetus, and I'm, like, comfortable saying I don't know that. And therefore, there's ambiguous moral weight on killing it, depending on what stage it's in.
Yeah, I think
and the likelihood that it's at the, it develops at this stage versus this stage.
Right. It's not going to be at exactly 62 days or something, right? Like, who knows? But I mean, maybe it is, but it would be weird to say, oh, we found it. It's this exact second after fertilization or something. But it's like you mentioned that, I forgot how it came up, but SJW is not liking rationalists or something. I think part of that might be because we tend to have moderate beliefs in a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and so
both sides read us as being on the enemy's side because we, like...
Right, because...
They can't fit us into either category.
Well, yeah, exactly. If you're not 100% in our camp only shooting the other way, then you're one of them.
And even
I was just going to say, like, the weakness that they see is the strength that I see is that we're able to, like, actually see the other side of the argument and admit that there's merit to it.
Now, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, there's merits to positions I disagree with. Doesn't mean I agree with them. It means that I can acknowledge the merit of it. Hey, I see where you're coming from. I think that's a good point. I think that the cost-benefit analysis still comes out this way. Yeah.
Even on positions where, someone may be on the extreme side, they still are willing to talk to people on the other side, which is seen as a no-no by a lot of people.
Yeah.
They're just monsters. You can't talk to them.
Exactly. If you talk to a monster, you become a monster. That's how vampirism works. The other side is vampires.
Anyway, are we done with sequences?
Let's see. I think we had one thing at the very end.
I'll grab it.
Ahead.
Okay.
So try to explain the kind of thought processes you use to systematically produce beliefs that mirror reality. Explain why you think you're rational. why you think that, using the processes like the one you use, minds will end up believing snow is white if and only if snow is white. If you don't believe that the outputs of your thought processes are entangled with reality, why believe the outputs of your thought processes? I really struggle with that word every time, but yeah, if you don't believe that the output of your thoughts if your thoughts are entangled with reality, why do you believe your thoughts?
Yeah.
What I shudder to think that there are definitely people who feel that way, and they're
I don't know how I think things.
well, but I mean, I think that if they're really like, I can't trust my thoughts, they're in some sort of psychological crisis.
Schizophrenics.
You know, a lot of people might just be like, I feel it in my gut.
I suppose.
Yeah, there's like intuitive
But their
thoughts.
part of their evidence for their thought is their gut feeling, right?
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, like
Which
they
actually,
still.
like, people's gut feeling is pretty good when they do
I have a lot of experience with
various.
the thing.
Well, it depends. Like, yeah, you get like nurses that can like be like, oh shit, that person's about to have a heart attack for no reason. Anybody who's not a nurse can discern because they do have that much experience. Or like, also we just have a bunch of general heuristics as evolved beings about like if you feel nervous about a person, like if somebody's giving you a bad vibe, you might trust that. Or I don't know, that's a bad example because then that gets into like, but what about if black people give you a bad vibe? If like you will be more satisfied with your meal. They have tested this. If you look at a menu, order the first thing that looks good and then just close the menu, as opposed to if you read all the things
Oh, that's cool.
because of option paralysis.
I've kind of made that
Comparisons
unconsciously my own
Yeah.
like way of doing it, because once I've made the decision, it's like, well, I'm not going to sit there and like, oh, I should have gotten this occasionally, but then I've never, I don't know, I've never tried to operationalize like how much did I enjoy what I got, but then I'll just get the thing that I saw that that I thought I might like the next time or something. Remember when you used to go to restaurants and go out to eat?
right?
In that
It feels,
case, I
feels
should,
like ages ago.
in that case, I should randomize where in the menu I start.
Yes.
Because otherwise, I'd always end up with something near the front of the menu.
Or go to one of those expensive restaurants
Fine,
that
though.
only has like 5 things, and they hand you, it's like a placard, and it's got a nice printed thing, and it's like, here's the 3 or 4 or 5 things that we have, pick one. And it's like, well, I've seen everything and I don't like these 2, so yeah, I'll get this.
I don't know. I tend to look at a menu like just by sort of blurring my eyes and skimming around it, and the first thing that jumps out. I guess you do tend to get more things like towards the beginning of the menu if it's got several pages, but like that's fine though because it's still me getting a thing I like.
It depends where I'm going to. If it's a breakfast place, I'm like, where's the pancakes and eggs?
Yeah, you go to the section that you know you're gonna like something.
Exactly. All right.
Anyway,
So for next time, the 2 sequence posts we're going to read is The Lens That Sees Its Flaws, which is one of my favorites, and How Much Evidence Does It Take?
yay.
How much does it take? Find out in 2 weeks on the Bayesian
Come
Conspiracy.
on.
Exactly 3 evidences worth.
Evidence units.
Yeah.
All right. Our main topic was we had our patron who was apparently a patron for like 3 years.
Nice.
Long time.
Lucas or Lucas Z. It's Lukaszz.
I think I remember this one. Is it the L with the line through it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, it's probably Łukasz then.
Oh,
Because
gosh.
I think he's a Polish listener, and my Polish is really, really terrible. Particularly, I'm barely literate. When I was a kid, I could kind of read some Koziołek Matołek, which is like Matthew the Goat, kid stuff. But I think that would be pronounced Łukasz.
All
Right
right. I'm glad that you knew that because I did not. I was gonna say either like Lucas.
I kind of trusted that you would know how to say it because SZ is also how your name ends.
Yes.
So I'm like,
Oh,
okay, this
yeah.
sounds like an
I didn't even-
Inuyasha understandable word.
Put that together. So he wrote in, or they wrote in, asking about immortality. Does somebody have the email? If do we want to like pull out
I just have the
specific wording or?
the Patreon messaging that I was having back and forth.
Okay.
In short, we can find the email in a minute too, but it was current longevity efforts would be a good conversation topic. Aubrey de Grey, David Sinclair, Michael Fossell. Is there any chance that our age, I'm 40, will reach the longevity escape velocity?
Right. I guess we should briefly say what the longevity escape velocity concept is.
Longevity escape velocity is the idea that at time X we'll invent some technology, we'll have popularized some technology that will increase the average healthy human lifespan by some number of years. At some point in those number of years, there may be other life extension technologies, and lather, rinse, repeat. If every 5 years you're finding technology that increases the lifespan by 8 years or something, you're going to live for as long as you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now, I don't know how fast we're discovering life extension technologies. I'm assuming it's less than that. That maybe every 10 years we can expand life by 1 year.
Right. So we're not at escape velocity yet.
Yes.
Yeah, but we also don't know because we don't know which things we've already like discovered or helped. Like we don't know how long. Well, that's the exact question. We don't know how long we are going to live, as compared to our parents, compared to our grandparents.
But
we don't have enough data yet to really sort of plot it.
Can we reach the point where the average extension in life discovered every year is more than 1 year's time?
Right, and that's the $1 million question, right? Like, I wanted to put this one off a little while so I could do some homework, and I didn't become an expert in 2 weeks, but I did try and learn some. I mean, and none of it's the scientific stuff. I basically just sort of assumed Jace would know all that, so I came at it from the other direction. Like, Aubrey de Grey is my go-to figure in this community. I think he's in his 40s, but he looks a lot older because of his awesome Gandalf beard.
He's got
Wait, he's
awesome wizard beard.
40s.
I think he's in his 50s now.
Well, now he is, but you're right.
up.
But in any case, I remember I was watching some interview with him a few years ago, and he was in like 45.
He's 57.
Okay, so this must have been more than a few years ago. In any case,
And his name is Aubrey David Nicholas Jasper de Grey.
That's awesome.
What?
Like Albus Percival Wulfric
Yes.
Brian Dumbledore.
He
Or was
looks
Brian
like
earlier?
Dumbledore, too. Look at him. Like, this is our Dumbledore, you guys. Yeah, so... Sorry, Steven, go ahead.
No, you're good. So, like, I think he rightly points out. So he's the chief technical officer at the Methuselah Project or Foundation. I forget what it's called.
The Sense Research Foundation.
That's
Sense.
right. Yeah, he dropped the Methuselah thing then, right?
Society for Engineered Negligible Senescence, I believe.
Yeah, and also Vice President of New Technology Discovery at Age X Therapeutics.
Okay. Well,
Incorporated.
I was going to say you guys know more than I do, but you're looking at his Wikipedia. You're cheating. But
Yeah,
no, that's helpful. I'm glad you got
the
it right.
internet.
In any case, he's the CTO over there, or he was at least a few years ago. My information might be out of date, and he has to spend most of his time kind of basically evangelizing for getting the message of what they're trying to do out and trying to get money. But I think he makes a very compelling case that this is like an important problem to solve. Which, like, to us, it's like no shit. But to a lot of people who some people think don't exist, Brian. But a lot of people don't see this as a big problem. They see it as the way life goes. Oh yeah, you live, then you get old, and you get decrepit, and then you die. Like, that's
Or they even think it's a good thing. Like,
Right.
I all the time hear people, like, deathists advocating for, like, death is really important and great. And we should celebrate death.
It's what gives life meaning.
Yeah.
Brian has read Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, yes.
He's a Lord of the Rings nerd. And, I mean, fucking, what's his name? J.R.R. Tolkien wrote that death was the gift given to mankind.
Yeah,
That
I know.
the elves are cursed to have to live forever unless they die of sadness or are slain. Which, I mean, that's a big loophole right there. Like, if you don't like your life, you can just kill yourself. But yeah,
could
the
do that
gift
anyway.
that humans got was that they would shuffle off this mortal coil more quickly. And, like,
Yeah,
that's a bullshit gift.
in just a few decades, where you get like an optimal 4 decades.
How can someone who's read Tolkien, who says death is a gift, claim there's no deathists?
I think that he thinks that they exist in the same way that flat earthers exist. I'm not going to try and sit here and
Okay.
either poke holes or steelman Brian, but I do
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I don't think he would argue that they aren't real. He would just say that, like, this
not as
is not a majority enemy.
Okay.
And he might be right about the majority part, right? Like, I think most people would say, yeah, death sucks. I wish it didn't happen. Anyone who's lost somebody would probably say, I wish that didn't happen.
Well, they would say that specifically, yeah.
Right.
But
So-
at least when I was young, the whole death gives life meaning was still a common talking point.
And it still is now.
Is it still now?
I mean,
I thought it was starting to be less so.
I guess most of my stuff is 10 years old, but I remember even watching a talk from Sam Harris during, the peak of the new atheism thing, so this would be like 15 years ago, basically making that case.
A lot of the new atheist stuff, like, the part I had trouble with was, a lot of people were, like, saying that death is great as, like, a way to sort of, when they're listing all the benefits of being an atheist and versus, like, being religious, they're like, and you get freed from this idea that there's such a terrible thing as, like, an eternal pit of torture. And, like, you
Well,
know
that is
what?
pretty
Death
terrible.
is natural and fine. And this is just people who are scared of death, like, come up with these crazy ideas in order to deal with their fear. But we atheists are strong and we can face death with stoicism and respect and dignity. And I was just like, not me. I don't want it.
I think part of the knee-jerk reaction
I'm
that
scared
you
of
get,
it.
that you get from otherwise smart people about saying, hey, I think death is bad and we should stop it, is they get like that same sort of like, oh, I've heard this argument before. You're trying to sell me on an afterlife.
Yeah.
And so
You're like, that sounds like magic.
right. So I can get where they're coming from, but at the very least, it's a common enough place or common enough idea where like most people don't see this as a problem that we should be working to solve. They might say it sucks, but they're not like, and we should do something about it.
Have you seen all of The Good Place yet?
Yes.
So, spoilers. Have you seen all of this?
I have not, but I don't care about spoilers.
All right, massive spoilers. Anyone who doesn't want to know how it ends, skip ahead about a minute, maybe two, now. But from what I heard, I'm still working through the final season. At the end, it goes full deathist, where they're like, and dying is great. At the end, you choose oblivion rather than getting to live forever in the good place.
Basically, the way it ends is that they get to the good place, and everyone there is kind of just like, not exactly wire-headed happy, but they're basically that, and they're bored, and they've done everything, which seems weird because they weren't creative with everything they did, but etc. I'm given, that's fine. If you got a lame utopia, that would suck, and then they're just stuck there. And so like the architects who worked on the good place, they were all stoked to quit their job when the new people were moving in, the protagonists, to take over, because they're like, we've never been able to figure this fucking thing out. No one here is really happy.
Oh, okay.
So the solution they come up with isn't, let's give them the opportunity to like respec or start over or
find some other way to
whatever.
be happy. Yeah.
The way that they did it is like, hey, you know what? Like at the very least, here's an exit. If you guys want it, you guys can leave. Like now, you're not stuck here forever.
Well, I mean, I'd rather have the suicide option if
Right.
existence was more horrible.
This is what they got, was the suicide option.
Okay,
So
but
like,
it isn't like this is the best choice in the end and everyone's going to choose it eventually.
I think not necessarily, but
Okay.
It's really
got it.
unrealistic.
it's not like the second they made this doorway to no one knows where, like everyone ran through it.
Okay.
But now it was an option.
Okay.
So it was, but it was still deathisty. Like I feel like there's more optimal solutions. But I do agree.
No, the
like
thing that's deathist about that is, sorry, finish your thought.
no,
but
go ahead.
It was like, I think that's the same argument that people make when they say, well, why would I want to live forever? You'd get so bored. And I was like, but like people on their deathbed, when they ask them if they want to die, like or like they always say one more day. People who commit suicide are depressed, like they're living in a hell. I could see, if you were forced to live in a hell, but I don't think like reality is a hell. Reality is excellent in a lot of ways, and like if you're somebody that's just gonna die because you get bored, like does anybody ever commit suicide because they're bored? Unless they're like being artificially kept in like some,
I mean,
situation, like they're in jail. Or
there's some people who commit slow suicide, like drinking themselves to death or something.
But that's like because they're not happy. Like
yeah, I mean,
that's
the
because
thing
there's
is,
shit
like,
going wrong in their life that could be fixed.
if you're
Or their
bored,
brain. Like depression's a solvable problem. And I think that like the main thing is that like right now I have a backlog of easily 200 years of things I'd like to do. Yeah. My current trajectory, I'm not on track to finish all those things.
I couldn't
Mainly
imagine
because
ever
I
getting
make
bored
no
with
effort to getting
reality.
through that list.
I mean,
so like, but if I had 200 years to do these things, you can bet in the next 200 years I'd have a backlog of, if I did the math properly, I'd get a different number, but 1,500 years of things to
I think
do.
we're ever gonna run out of stuff to explore or
I know.
problems to solve. Like,
And that's the thing is like, right now there's 1,000 books I'd like to read, and by the time I finished reading them in 200 years, because I'm a slow reader, there'll be 5,000 more books that I want to read. Lather, rinse, repeat until I'll never run out. As long as people keep writing books, then I'll have books to read.
I absolutely agree with all you guys, but I do know that there's some people who are just like only doing the same thing over and over and are bored of it and are just ready for it to end. And
but that's
you don't
solvable.
I know but for some reason, like they don't find the ability to do something different and not be bored.
I understand, and and I mean
that's a bummer.
I
think that's probably partially depression too.
Yeah,
I think
that's not normal.
I think that is basically depression, like in whether it's like clinical and fixable with
Or
therapy or
situational.
drugs, but it's like your life is not doing whatever it needs to make you give you that. But that is also like something that can be fixed.
Yeah.
Like I think I talked about my recent jumping onto antidepressants and stuff, and I found that beneficial. It's weird, like even in my most depressive phases, like there were days where it's like I would get up and be like, and not exactly have the thought I wish I wasn't alive, because I knew intellectually that like no, I want to keep living until I can fix this.
Yeah.
But I don't have the energy to want to keep doing that, right?
Yeah.
But I understood intellectually that I would.
If I
that
wait
would,
long enough or do like some interventions, I'll get back to Steven who wants to live.
Exactly. And so I mean, granted, some people's lives are a bummer, but like that's the thing is, I think that I I think that is also fixable.
Yeah, it's because their lives are a bummer.
But at the end of the day, if somebody wanted to
life
die,
is a
they should be
bummer.
allowed to, right?
Right.
But that'd have to be like, I would like it to be a very exercised choice.
Oh, I know
this
what that
sounds
kind of
like where some of the states where it's like you have to get one of those invasive wand ultrasounds or something before you can get an
know.
abortion.
Oh,
Like,
God.
I kind of want something that extreme before you're allowed to kill yourself. Like, in that it's an ugly parallel, but it's like, because this is for sure, man. Like, because again, you imagine like a future. It's like, are you sure you wouldn't rather just have your mind wiped of most things, and we can drop you off in a different country, and you can start scratch, whatever random shit.
I think
like,
the difference that you could point to
basically is death if you have your mind wiped.
yeah, so maybe most of it or something, right? But I don't know, whatever it is. Like, and my other thing too is I never got like suicidally depressed, and which is lucky, which means my depression never hit that far on the scale. But I always had this, like, I guess when I was first getting depressed, I had like just this understanding that, hey, you know what? If anything ever gets that bad, I'll get out another way. I'll throw my phone in the river and take a boat to another country, and like then I won't have any of the problems I have now.
this guy. I was this ice cream shop owner that I worked for when I was a teenager. Who used to just have these deep thoughts. And one time he was like, I don't understand why anyone would ever kill themselves. Like if I ever got to the point where I just felt depressed enough to kill myself, like that you're just throwing everything away, then you're totally free. Like, throw away all your belongings, hop on a bus, go do something crazy. At least, like, if you're gonna die, that's like literally the worst thing that could happen. So go
Might as well
try
die in
whatever.
Mexico with lots of cocaine or whatever.
I think that you're.
Which I think is just a misunderstanding of how depressed brains work.
It is.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, but you got that.
Once you're that depressed, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
I think
the thing that gives you the will to do stuff, just there's no engine, there's no
I
gas
just
in
wish
that
that
engine
message
anymore.
was out there more, though. Like, that if you're that suicidally depressed, what you probably do need to do is do something drastic, like quit your job for several months, like put your life on hold, or like go say the thing you really need to say to that person.
move to a different state or
yeah,
a different country, just change things up drastically.
I wish like society supported that more. Like that was, first of all, the message that like if you're suicidally depressed, that means you're free, go do the thing. And then also there was like services, support systems for people doing that.
There's also the fear when you're depressed that like wherever you go, there you are. So
Yeah.
I will go to a different state or a different country, but I'm still going to be me there, and I'm still going to be depressed there, and now I don't have some place to sleep, and this is even worse now.
But I think that, like, the things that fix depression that, like, they've studied are things like diet, exercise, sleep,
Yeah.
and, like,
Which are all
Drugs
things we're
and
going to
therapy.
talk about when we get to the actual longevity part of this podcast.
oh, yeah, we were going to have a subject.
I will say that when I
Sort
was
of on
at the
topic, though.
peak of my back pain, if like I knew it was just a bad day and I just had to get through that day and the next day would be better. But like if I knew for a fact that every day would be like that, I would not want to live. Because I mean, the pain was really high, and also I couldn't do anything that was enjoyable because the pain sapped all my energy.
Yeah.
And I would have been like, nah, this isn't worth going forward.
That's totally why I think euthanasia is, like, acceptable, but, like, in a future where nobody was ever in that much physical pain, maybe that would be different. But, like, yeah, there's definitely, like, things that can make your life miserable enough that it's not worth the amount of suffering.
It's weird because I know there's really good drugs out there, painkillers, narcotics, and like lots of old people are on them. And that
We
like
don't want those ones.
I know, but I mean that makes it better. So then you don't have that pain and you can live again, but you don't live normally. You're kind of foggy and can't
Yeah.
do as much stuff. So I don't know how I would feel about maybe trying those instead of death for a while.
I would try it first.
Yes, I would definitely give it a shot.
Yeah, but that said, yeah, I'm glad you found other tracks to being
Me too.
getting better
Yes.
and all that. It's I guess I can find a way to segue this back into the longevity thing, which is like you mentioned old people. Like part of the issue with dealing with this is that people view the symptoms of aging, of just accumulating damage for too long from being alive, as like distinct from other problems, and they are they're distinct in that they have different causes, but they're not they're not in this like separate magisterium of, well, this is the kind of things that we don't work on. And I think that I had a more articulate way of driving this home, but I dropped it, so I'll let someone else pick up the wheel.
I think okay, so his primary concern seems to be at 40, and I am also at 40 now. Is there going to be? Can I get on this not dying thing? Like, will technology advance fast enough that we will hit escape velocity before I reach 85 or 90 or whatever more my body actually gives out? And, like, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I'm not even sure that people at the very high-end research places could say that with...
Aubrey de Grey says that most of the fundamental knowledge needed to develop the anti-aging medicine already exists. And we know which specific things cause death-related aging, and we have the knowledge
I think
that we need. We just need to. It's about like, are we going to put the money towards this, or is Big Pharma going to keep
I personally
rebranding?
think he's overconfident on that, because there's a lot of old people with a lot of money that would be putting money towards that if that was as optimistic as he...
I think that he's saying that the separate pieces are there, but the working machine isn't put together yet.
Yeah, it's not until like we can provably, fix this list of issues. Like we know what they are, we know how to fix them now, but like, is it going to happen in our lifetime? Yeah, it depends on, again, whether there's enough of a push by governments and like the private sector and whoever is needed.
I think
to make sure these things get made in a timely manner.
Yeah, I think a few years ago, his estimate was something like 50% of this being a thing in the next 25 years.
50% of what being a thing?
Longevity technology.
Okay.
So maybe he's optimistic, maybe he's not, or maybe he's pessimistic. Maybe he's perfectly calibrated. I don't know.
I'm worried it's going to be a lot like cancer, where they think they found the thing that causes cancer and they fix it, but then they just find like another deeper problem. So they solved some cancer, but there's other stuff that needs to be solved too, and it always spirals like that, where they get a little better and they solve some things, but there's always something just out of reach.
But that's kind of the thing, is like, yeah, we're not going to solve aging in one swoop.
Right.
We're going to get better at it.
But that means you don't know exactly how many steps you need, and so you can't say for sure that you'll get them in the next 4 decades.
I think that's why it's an estimate, and not saying I've got a timeline for this deliverable.
Right.
There was sorry, you were still talking?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that a major factor of it is the lack of funding. I know that as of, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, his organization was managing about $5 million a year, which, when you think of aging and aging-related deaths as like the leading cause of suffering across the entire planet,
that's nothing.
It's nothing.
$5 million can't even pay for a very large staff.
Right.
Not to mention the facilities and the supplies they would need.
They staff about 30 people that work under that, like that's on their payroll. They work in conjunction with other communities and other centers, but like the scope of the problem is just completely not acknowledged by the budget, and it comes with no national budget, right? You would think that, hey, if I would just imagine that China would be putting forward 0.01% of its GDP towards solving this problem, because if they got life extension technology first, what a boon, right? They could sell that to the rest of the world. They could hoard it for themselves and be immortal while the rest of us all die. Like and that goes for insert any country, right?
Yeah.
This seems like an easily self-interested goal, like with enough self-interest to motivate just about anybody to do it.
That's why I'm not as optimistic as Aubrey de Grey is on how far along we are, because other people would also see that and be like, I could make bank if we're really
I am
this
because
close.
I'm cynical enough that I've been in the clinical research industry. There's like, there's not a guarantee that any particular company trying to find the answer to one of these things would find it. It's just like, game theoretically, I guess, if you're trying to calculate the payouts for some private medical organization, you're going to make much more money, much more reliably if you, knock a molecule off of a Zoloft and make a Zoloft, knockoff and then rebrand it as a new antidepressant or, some bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of it is that there's no short-term money to be made here.
And there's plenty of people, in government and in high-level organizations that are religious and don't think that death is a problem. So you have to, first of all, convince people that death is a problem and, deal with the fact that culturally we're largely deathist and largely religious, across the world. And then, secondly,
I think it doesn't help matters at all that because of stringent FDA testing, it takes at least $100 million to bring a new
20
market
years.
drug. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at 20 years, $100 million. I've heard up to $1 billion sometimes.
Yeah, our FDA is ridiculously conservative, I think.
And if there's a drug that'll expand someone's lifespan by 1 year, in order to recoup that cost, you have to charge a lot for that drug, and people aren't going to pay that much money for something that'll give them one more year of life.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I think people aren't that interested on the stuff that'll provide marginal benefits, because like it's all going to look like stuff that provides marginal benefits right now.
Yeah, and that's all it'll ever be, just marginal benefits stacked up on top of each other.
I'm curious how.
But if it costs too much to make a small margin, then it won't come out. Like I really think that this over-regulation, making things too expensive to have small margins, is going to be a major problem.
Yeah, luckily,
because the margins are going to be small. There's not, in my opinion, going to be one drug that just automatically extends your life by 20 years.
No, there's I forget how many things. There's at least 3 therapies. Or never mind. I should find the entire list before I just start saying things. But there's.
It's also why I'm more thinking that's going to come in a different country than the U.S.
That's what I was going to say.
A country with less regulation.
There's other countries that have much less conservative FDAs, or no FDA analog where they could totally do this.
India,
it's just
China,
that
Mexico. That's why I use China in my hypothetical, not the U.S.
China or India. Yeah. India makes a lot of pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, they also have a lot of brain drain right now, which is going to make it harder for them to progress.
Maybe like Korea.
It's
Japan.
a difficult problem. Could be Korea. Yeah.
Korea's really on the cutting edge of medicine.
How is their regulation though?
Conservative, but I think there might be some fewer restrictions. Actually, I would want to look that up. I'm not positive, but
I know Mexico is pretty liberal, but again, Mexico loses a lot of its intelligent people to the U.S., especially since we're so close.
Yeah, it's a really it's a difficult country to.
I think there's the other
for what were you?
I was going to just kind of pivot a little bit because you mentioned diet and exercise and stuff. Yeah. At least according to Aubrey de Grey 5 years ago, the benefits are basically negligible
of diet and exercise
on longevity.
Yeah, it's
now I think genetic. On life quality, it's definitely a factor, and I don't think he hit that point hard enough. I listened to his episode on the Joe Rogan Experience from 2015. Mm-hmm. Here's an example he gave. So, Japan is the longest lived country in the world. And in 2015, the numbers were different than they are now for the U.S. But if you guys had to guess, what is the average life difference in life expectancy between here and Japan?
So
5 years.
I heard this before. I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was something like 7 years.
It was 4 in 2015. So you guys guessed a lot lower than most people guess. They usually guess around 10 or a dozen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you regularly see people who lived to 120, and I think that would probably skew people's ideas of how long the average Japanese person lives.
Right.
I think one of the surprising parts about that is also that Japanese people smoke a ton compared to the U.S.
Well, that's part of what Steven's saying. It's diet and exercise, staying healthy to an old age has individual benefits, but in terms of centenarians, what do they call them?
Centenarians, I think.
It's largely genetic, and you will see the people that are 120. You interview them, and they're not shining examples of doing all the right things. I remember there was a Cuban woman who had lived to 110 or something, and she smoked a cigar every day because they were asking what I think they actually interviewed her and were asking what things do you do to preserve your good youth, and it was she's like, oh yeah, I go for walks and I talk to my friends and I make sure I always smoke a cigar a day.
That's sad.
Just keeps me young, and I was just
You can really improve your odds by changing things, because the smoker with amazing genes, a third of them are going to get lung cancer. So you can have the amazing genes, but the smoking is still going to stop a third of them from making it.
Yeah, and that just at that woman's point, one cigar a day is more like a treat than it is
that's a significant accumulation of carcinogens over time. But she just had good genes.
It's a lot less than, especially the way you smoke cigars is not how you smoke cigarettes.
Right, assuming you don't actually inhale.
And yeah, if you do inhale, it's usually a lot less. But
if she said people eating bacon for breakfast every day though,
or if she said that she smoked like John Wayne, then I'd be like, okay, no way you made it to 120, right? Or 110.
How did John Wayne smoke?
Famously 5 packs a day.
Holy shit.
Which is, if you crunch the numbers, doable, but hard.
That's chain smoking as long as you're awake, basically.
Right. If you can burn through a cigarette in about 3 minutes,
ooh, that's
fast. But in high pressure times, I think a regular cigarette smoker can burn through a pack in an hour, which is one about every 3 minutes, right? Yeah.
I guess.
There's 20 in a thing, so...
I remember when I was smoking, it would take me 5 to 6 minutes to smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, so you would have to practice to get John Wayne speed. But in any case, I think there's a lot to be said about your own like physical well-being, whether or not like you're alive or not. Sure, I guess I'd rather be decrepit and alive than healthy and dead 5 years ago, if those are my options, if being alive meant that I made it to longevity escape velocity. But the trade-off is like is it turns out according to Aubrey de Grey is not substantial in your own life expectancy if you average out across people who like work out and stuff, in terms of just years alive. But like I'd rather my last decade be alive. Like my great grandpa up until his 90s was climbing onto his roof and cleaning out his gutters, like and shoveling snow and stuff. Like he was not bedbound for his last decade, not even close.
Just 3 days ago, I was talking to someone whose grandmother, if she ends up lying down, like if she slips to the floor or something, she can't get up again. She has such bad arthritis that someone needs to help her up, and that was a problem when in the evening she slipped down to the floor, and not until her caretaker showed up the next day, like 14 hours later.
Yeah, that's why you have one of those like medical call
Life alert.
She goes everywhere in a wheelchair and basically just spends her entire day sitting in a recliner watching TV because that's all she can do. And yeah, she made it to 90, but it's not a great existence, man.
Yeah, I would definitely try and maximize like the amount of fun I could have sitting down. But if you have
You're talking about people born 90 years ago, though. Like the other assumptions are going to be that like other things are going to improve along the way as well.
Yeah, certainly.
It's not like escape velocity is like you're like 85 and on the edge of death, and then suddenly it's like, oh, here's the thing that'll,
Yeah, the people who are in their 90s now lived through the age when we burnt lead in our gas, right? So all of us are born after that. So that's helpful.
I do think it's a really good idea to still try to be as healthy as you can to maximize your chances and to get those extra 5 years. That might be what you need to push you over.
Well, and to maximize your like quality of life in your late years.
I feel like those are almost separate arguments too. Like
it also
living has its value, and then like being in good health has another value. And I think they're both
Well, it also may be the case that, like, if you make it to 70 with a decent functional liver and 2 kidneys, you might be able to take some of these treatments.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're at 70 and a lot of your organs are already, like, starting to fail, the treatments that are available won't help you anyway, and so you won't get those extra 10 years that will get you to the next treatments. So I think just being healthier when you're older is good for reaching escape longevity regardless.
Agreed.
Which I would say, getting enough exercise and decent diet and enough sleep are all really important aspects of that.
I think that's just a good idea. Like that's gonna make your quality of life better.
Yeah. I'd said, I'd rather have 90 years of good health than 110 years where the last 30 years sucked, right? So,
and I know we've hit this on previous episodes, so I don't think we need to get too far into it, but definitely a good exercise routine and sleep routine is really good for quality of life and general health.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe longevity.
There's a lot of things that could go on that list.
Well, there's another thing which I have not really thought wasn't that important until coronavirus hit and I saw it taken away. I think like
connection, right?
Yeah, like a social exercise regimen I think is also very important. Like if you are disconnected from other people, that's just going to, I think it's going to make you live less long in general.
It does. They've tested this.
Yeah, it seems to be a human need. So, like, even if you have social anxiety or something, go out there, consider it like you consider exercise. This is something I have to do in order to have, a longer life and a more healthy life.
Here's an interesting thing. I forget if I've talked about this on here, but I was trying to look up benefits versus, like, drawbacks of drinking alcohol, because I drink alcohol, and
me too.
There was this like theory going around for a while that like resveratrol in wine or like some other thing in beer that I forget, like because they were trying to figure out why drinkers and non-drinkers why I forget if drinking barely affects your lifespan or if it like doesn't seem to, or maybe in some populations.
And drinking encompasses a wide variety of behaviors. It's probably important to caveat that you don't mean killing 24-pack a day is drinking, where having a beer a night is also drinking, right?
But I'm talking about just drinking it all versus quitting alcohol entirely.
I see, okay.
Neurotoxin, but it turns out that what is actually making the difference is that like alcohol does damage you over time, but it's not like resveratrol. It's the fact that people who drink are more likely to be social than those who don't.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Yeah, drinking is a social activity. And
there's a difference between, somebody who stays at home and just, like, solo drinks and watches TV, and, like, someone who goes out to bars or, like, goes out to breakfast and gets mimosas or whatever, social thing. Has a party and has some drinks. So it's
And having
clear
a drink
evidence
can make
that socialization, like getting out, having a social life, having friends, is pro longevity.
This is something I picked up just via osmosis with my wife's line of work, where now she's in hospice, but she was just in nursing home care and stuff. And one of the pivotal things of people having longer or healthier later years is having a social network and talking with people.
Yeah.
Like, I know that my grandma, it's a bummer because she doesn't get to hang out with her neighbors as much. I think they still kind of do sitting several feet apart and stuff outside.
I gotta call my grandmother. We don't get along, but like COVID happened and she was like in a nursing home, or in like a fancy nursing home. But like they had clubs and they would go on the bus and go to like Trader Joe's and learn cooking and like go to the aquarium and stuff. And now everybody's locked in their rooms.
Yeah. It's part of the reason that religious people have decent quality of life and longevity as well, because
They have those
they come
built-in
with
communities.
that. Mhm.
Yeah.
Built-in social aspect every week in community. That's why we need a rationalist church, which I will someday get around to doing something about.
We'll call it the Bayesian conspiracy. Perfect.
I'm glad that your opinions about that have come back around.
Well, like what I was going to say is that, people will market, play this game, play Sudokus, do word searches. Those are good for your brain.
Lumosity.
You know what's really good for your brain? Modeling other humans as you're engaging with them and trying to anticipate what they're going to say and what they're going to interpret about what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is a very cognitively demanding task. And if your plan is to work your brain, do that. And so people do when they're socializing. I think that's really valuable. My great grandparents who lived into their 90s, they played bridge every either once a week or twice a week with their neighbors. Like, and granted, those are all anecdotes and stuff, but the data from my wife isn't. This just happens to be the case, and Jay's corroborated. So I'm as far as I'm concerned, it's established fact that that having social networks as in your older age is just beneficial for you, medically and cognitively. I'm realizing that I'm not equipped at all to answer. How do we say Lucas's name properly? Wukash?
Probably Wukash.
Let us know how we did. But I don't think I'm much more equipped to address anything like more sciencey than any of that. Like this, I did do a little bit to try and get up to speed on it, but there's a lot other than like just reading the pop sci books or reading the Wikipedia pages of the people mentioned in the email. Like, there's not much more I was able to do in this amount of time. So, I mean, we're not done with the episode, but before I forget to plug this, if anybody listening knows a lot about this and wants to talk about it, email us at I just had it up, BayesianConspiracyPodcast@gmail.com. That's the one. And,
or comment or
put
something on the Discord, or
I definitely see emails more than I see comments.
send us an owl.
Yeah. If you just don't ping me on Discord, there's a 0.1% chance I'll see it. If you do ping me, there's a 95% chance I'll see it. But email's the easiest way. But any other medium where you say, hey, listen, or ping me or whatever, or ping one of us and get in touch.
Anyone who sends a literal owl gets all sorts of internet points.
Right. And
we will make them a rationalist bishop someday.
Right. Speaking of plugging things, I meant to do this last episode and I forgot.
Plug a thing.
It's not mine. It is...
Also, please don't actually send an owl in a cage that I will have to care for.
Owls make terrible pets.
Yeah, but would not want.
If it flies here and drops off something, that'd be tight.
Exactly.
And then flies away.
Yes.
Okay, Gianluca, I hope I'm saying that right. I've listened to a handful of episodes. Is doing or finished the official audio version of the Replacing Guilt sequence.
Yeah, it's ongoing. I've been listening to it. It's really good.
What's delightful about it is that I never got around to reading it, even knowing how valuable it was, because I'm lazy and hate reading things. And so I've been listening to this, and I said I'd plug it last time, and I forgot. This is great. So you can search for the...
We should totally link it on this
Oh,
episode.
yeah,
definitely.
we'll go ahead and just link it too. But if you're going to search it in your thing, it's just called Replacing Guilt. Find it in any podcatcher, and it's awesome.
How many episodes is it up to?
Let me double check. I've been listening in order, which I listened to one out of order because the way this thing does it is newest to oldest for some stupid reason.
Yeah, like re-listening to it, which has been really valuable, even though I've read it already. Because with a lot of, I guess with most complicated, long things, you don't remember everything, or you don't like process everything correctly the first time. And especially I think with like psychological things like this, where here's like a model about psychology that you have to kind of struggle with to like watch how you're interacting with this thing, and then like see if you can put like the intervention in play, and then kind of check, did I do it right? Like, but I don't know, I've gotten a lot of value out of just going back and then being reminded that, oh yeah, the word should,
Considered harmful.
like, yeah, should considered harmful.
That's episode
If you catch
8.
yourself like being like, yeah, I should go to the grocery store, then like you'd be like, oh wait, should's bad. I need to go to the grocery store so I can get food, so I can continue to live. There, I've traced my values all the way up, and now I can say
I'm anticipating
something
that.
more strong and motivating.
Yeah, I'm anticipating that internalizing the messages of this sequence will actually make me more productive in doing the things I want to do, which I'm excited about.
Yeah,
And-
you have to dig through some kind of hard, like, entrenched shit for some of these, though. Like, this is really, I don't know. I was raised Catholic. Catholic guilt is a thing.
As far as I know, I don't have a lot of guilt baggage. I mean, I
didn't
have
think
I have some
did
stuff I
either.
carry around,
You
but
gotta look
like,
at your, like, actual behavior, because, like, a lot of the stuff you do is invisible to you.
I guess let me say that I know that it's possible to be aware of like how heavy your guilt baggage is, right? Or at least have some idea. I'm not carrying around what I am perceiving as a lot, but I probably carry around some that I could lose. And I definitely do I think I could benefit from framing things better and be more accomplishing that way. Like, I feel guilty for the amount of, like, I remember when, well, I was asked at some point like a year ago what's like my guilty pleasure. And I was like, well, and they, even the person asking gave the caveat, like, I don't think guilty pleasures are a thing. You know, if you're having fun, that's all that matters. But if I had to pick one, it's like watching reruns. I watch several
love
hours of
watching
reruns
reruns.
a week. And like, what, you know, even as useless as it is to watch American Dad, I've seen all of Cutthroat Kitchen twice. Like, you know, so as useless as it is to watch those shows, you know, even if you're getting utilized out of the fun of it or whatever, fine. But like, there's probably better uses of my time. There's definitely better uses of my time than watching, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the show I've seen the most, but whatever. Seeing the show 3 or 4 times, like that's a complete waste of time, and I feel bad about that. So I should stop feeling bad about it. And just as long as I'm plugging again the Replacing Guilt, episode 30 came out on October 29th, and it looks like they're every week. But if it is every week, they missed a week. So.
When you're watching reruns, a lot of times you aren't watching them anyway, though, right? They're just happening in the background.
And there's the other perk with reruns is that like it's relaxing terrain for your brain, so it's like a great way to unwind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because so like even if you're watching Seinfeld, you know, for the second time or something, it's like you know when the joke is coming, but that means your brain doesn't have to work. You don't have to follow it. You just get to tune in when the laugh comes and then tune back out.
It depends if it's something complicated, too, or, like, something you've watched so long ago that you've forgotten it.
Yeah, there's some things that definitely benefit from rewatches, and you pick up little jokes that you missed the first time.
I've rewatched things that, like, I watched in my childhood, and that's been really interesting.
That's a trip sometimes.
It is. And I'm rereading, like, I've been reading some stuff aloud to Phoenix or, like, other people that enjoy being read to. That is things that I found personally, like,
Who doesn't being read to?
mementuous. I don't know, some people don't have the attention span, but I love it. Personally, I love reading aloud and being read to. And, like, that's something that's been in human culture forever. Like, people would sit around a campfire and they would sort of retell the stories of, like, the heroes of, you know, like, story of Odysseus, the other epic stories.
All the old myths.
And now we have, like, Superman, Batman, etc., which provide the same role, but there is, like, some desire for repetition. Like, children want to hear the same story before bed because it has that same sort of, like, there's something calming about hearing it again and again.
Tell us the one about the trolls, Bilbo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how, for some whatever bizarre reason, the music that you listen to as a teenager imprints on your memories and emotions different than any other music, really?
Well, that's the most emotional period of your life.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, for at least the last century, we've had the thing where there's constant new music, and so, you know, teenagers always have their own different thing. That's where, like, oh yeah, hippies have their 60s music, which was great and all, but it's not my music, right? I was just thinking, like, 500 years ago, when literally the only music you had was what people in your village could sing and play, like, literally everyone would have the same songs as their teenage songs. Like, how uniting would that be across generations if everyone had the same feelings about the same songs?
That's interesting. Yeah, and then, you know, your old lullaby when you were a kid was your nostalgia music or something, right?
It's weird because there's some things, like, I remember recommending the Billie Eilish album a little bit ago, and it's beautiful and amazing, and I love it. And nonetheless, still, like, even songs that I know are objectively worse that I heard when I was a teenager,
They have that sentimental value.
they have a different quality to them that it feels a little different.
I think it's really healthy to have both a bunch of songs or a bunch of artists that you have that sentimental value, like, of this is my childhood favorite song, or this is my, like, my middle school jam, and also be able to appreciate new music. There's a lot of people that sort of, the songs they listen to growing up in their, like, 20s and 30s are just the only thing they want to listen to for the rest of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
And that seems
that's
so
the aging
sad.
hippie, yeah. All he ever wants to do is listen to the Doors, man.
That is like a universal human
And Pink
thing
Floyd.
that like large populations of people have though, and I got really worried that I was starting to have that where like every time I realized that like oh no, I don't like any of the new music, is it objectively bad or am I becoming old?
Well,
But
the thing is, most of the music in
so far
our
I
teenage
keep-
hoods were objectively bad too. But some of the really good stuff is still around.
yeah, I don't know.
I tried the Billie Eilish album. I can't understand what she's saying, so I need to just read the lyrics. I'm bad at we've talked about this. When we first met, you thought I hated music, but it was really just that I don't listen to it because I can't understand song lyrics.
Well, no, I usually can't either. I have a very hard time with most lyrics, but like Billie Eilish specifically, I found very easy to understand. I'm not sure why.
If you
depends-
listen to the same songs over and over, you get better at picking stuff out.
She mumbles a lot of it, which is fine. It's like and it sounds cool, but like it might as well be in Korean.
I think what it is with her is she oftentimes says an entire word when she says the word. Like, I mean,
That helps.
Yeah.
Like Kesha is really good at that. I can understand Kesha music just fine, and I mean it. Kesha's awesome. Her
Yeah.
album Rainbow was beautiful. It was
I
great.
like Kesha. I think she's one of those artists who like actually has a degree from Harvard or something like that, and like just has like they play a persona.
like Maynard from Tool, he makes the most amazing music, and some of the lyrics are just shockingly like emotional.
Oh yeah.
But like the lyrics are stretched to match the music. Sometimes one word will be spread over several different beats. Sometimes several words are shoved into a single measure, and it it makes it a lot harder to understand. I had to listen to some of those songs many times before I got 90% of the words, and there's still some that I don't know.
That is a trainable skill, by the way. It's like the same thing with when I first got into doing EMS. I couldn't hear anything anybody was saying over radio ever, and like the more you listen, the more you get better at picking that out. I think it's the same with foreign languages. It's the same with listening to music.
EMS.
Medical services?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, picking stuff over the radio. Now I get it. I thought you were saying music again. I'm like, well, hold on. What music are you listening to? Okay, yeah.
Well, I do listen
No
to
one
some
listens to music
that,
on the radio.
not on the radio. I listen to some music that like some people wouldn't classify as music.
I remember.
really like industrial.
Industrial's totally music. I love industrial.
Yeah, but I mean, like, Coil, not Lacuna Coil, Coil, the British band, where, like, it's bizarre phrases, stretched out strangely, dubbed on top of, like, a thumping noise that they sampled from the subway. Like,
Dude, I went to see a band here.
really artsy shit.
I went to see a band here in Denver where the percussion was an oil drum that had a chain on top of it that the guy would bang on it.
Is this Blue Man Group?
No.
'Cause they're awesome.
This was, what was it? Echo Beds. And it was...
Echo Feds.
It was like really well done, and I was like, most people wouldn't like this, but they found something and they've managed to make it music, and this is pretty fucking impressive. Especially because the venue where I saw them was such a small place. I was literally standing about 4 feet away from the band, and there wasn't a stage or anything. I was just right there with the dude watching him do his thing. I was like, this is an intense experience.
Yeah. Anyway,
Sorry, we have gotten way off topic.
I have a couple of less wrong articles that were released recently about the subject of aging.
Okay, hit us up.
So we have what's our true life expectancy, which was asked in the questions section. Really short, so I'll just read it. Adam Zerner says, I recently learned that, and recently learned is a link to the Stupid Questions October edition 2020, that when they talk about a life expectancy of e.g. 80 years, it's assumed that the future looks similar to the past, but with exponential progress in technology, that doesn't seem like a good assumption. For example, according to Bostrom's survey, which links to just Nick Bostrom's website, 90% likelihood, the median pessimistic year for AGI is 2075. So, taking into account technological progress, what do we expect life expectancy to be?
2076 for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, and then
2075 and 3 days. Yeah.
So I can't really read all the comments, but there is a bunch of very smart people in the comments saying what sharing what things they know as far as evidence goes, or sharing their own predictions. So I recommend reading through that one.
And
also, there's some good
what was it
arguments
called?
too. Yeah, I'll link to both of them. It's what is our true life expectancy?
Gotcha.
And then there's another one which was 3 open problems in aging that was posted even more recently. by John S. Wentworth, or John's Wentworth, which is a longer article, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. But it's talking about atherosclerosis and how much oxidation, senescence-induced senescence, sorry, so many hard words, and the mitochondria senescence bistable switch. So it's a brief description of each of these open problems, and then some questions about, for example, well, maybe I'll just read like the beginning of it. So aging has a surplus of excellent experimentalists, but a shortage of good modeling/analysis/theory. Less wrong in the adjacent community have a surplus of people with great modeling/analysis skills, many with an outsider's interest in aging, so this post outlines some problems which could fit that skill set. I expect all of these could be solved to a reasonable degree of certainty with careful modeling, and some beyond high school but not revolutionary statistics, using already existing data. So this is sort of a call for that, which, since this was posted so recently, it was on November 7th, there's currently 8 comments, but I'm keeping an eye on this one, because I just really like the idea, like, of coordinating the community to see, like, which people, can, like, do we rationalists have anybody who could just grab at this low-hanging fruit here? And how could we, like, sort of coordinate or fund this? And I'm really hoping to see some movement in the comments here. But, yeah, so sort of the answer to, or, yeah, the answer as far as we know, for Wukash.
Again,
Like the end
probably,
of your
I'm not
name.
entirely sure, and
Okay.
also assuming that he's Polish.
Yeah. For our pal Wu. Or is we don't know. Like nobody knows right now. We know what the questions are, and we can maybe make some predictions though how long we think that these problems will take. So
Yeah, I don't
But,
think that they're hoping that we could find the right answer on Google and deliver
Nah.
the answered
I think
problem.
they're just saying what's the that they're trying to see if we know what's the consensus, and
Right.
like the consensus is that different people who have different levels of background experience give different predictions. But
And we didn't.
from what I know, and I want to get into a career in this field at some point. That would be my ideal, but it is looking pretty hopeful
There
for
is
our generation.
I think it is. Certainly, I mean, it's hard because everyone's going to have that sort of like bias where they're thinking, oh, it's going to happen in my lifetime. Like, I don't think it'll happen in Ray Kurzweil's lifetime, despite him saying it will his whole life, right? It might. I hope it does. But I think that, some people it's easy to be motivated and not even notice the motivation that it'll happen now. Like, no one's thinking, probably 2150, right? No, I don't think anyone's saying that because we don't know what the world will be like in 150. But there is another avenue towards longevity that we didn't talk about much or at all yet, but there's not really much to say, which is, we've talked about protecting and preserving our meat suits. If you could move the important moving parts of your brain to another substrate that is more reliable and doesn't deteriorate like your body does, like I'm talking uploads and or robot bodies or something. That is another way to live longer, and there are separate projects working on that. And I think the problems there are obviously distinctly different kinds of challenges than they are of like how do we keep our bodies working, right?
Yeah. Before we go like into the more esoteric stuff, do we want to talk briefly about NAD+?
Is that the drug you
Oh
take?
yeah.
No, but the thing that I take supports NAD+ production.
Okay, I'm glad you reminded me because that was on my short list of things to ask about.
Okay. Well, the NAD+ is one of the primary things used in our mitochondria to power our bodies and our cells.
Is that November Alpha Delta Plus, or is
Yes.
that okay? Gotcha.
NAD.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you're saying N80 plus.
Oh,
Gotcha.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it's and it decreases as we get older, and there was a lot of promising research in 2013 or so. I don't
Some
remember.
new promising research just came out.
Yes, but this is when it first hit the scene and everyone started talking about it, and it was like, and still is, sorry, one of the most promising avenues for at least slowing down the impacts of aging and possibly getting a few more decades out of things.
And does this work on polymerase tails or?
No, it works by the cells not degenerating as quickly, and it's still an ongoing ongoing research project. So I don't want to like overpromise anything or say that like this is definitely the thing, but it has quite a number of Nobel laureates, and specifically Nobel laureates in physiology and chemistry and such, saying that this looks like probably our best path forward right now, considering what we know. And the NAD plus levels, they support the mitochondrial health, but you can't like supplement it directly. The best you can do is make a lot of the precursors bioavailable in your body so that your body can have all the materials it needs to make more of that stuff. So there are 2 supplements right now that are common precursors to make the NAD+. And that is kind of like what the big push has been lately among people who are excited about this kind of stuff, is these particular supplements. And the one I am most familiar with, and that has the most research behind it right now, is called Thank you. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it.
Or nicotinamide, yeah.
All right, I'm going to just put in the show notes I'm going to put in my little, I take notes during the episode to what to put in the show notes. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to put that. I'm going to put supplements, and you guys, I'm not going to try and spell that.
Yeah, I would imagine it's pronounced nicotinamide riboside, because that's how it's spelled, but I don't know. Maybe I'm pronouncing it not.
I believe
like
that is the pronunciation.
Okay. And that is the main one that has been, people have been supplementing with for quite a number of years. It is, can go into your cells pretty easily through cell walls, and from there be turned into NAD+. Problem is, really, it's more of you won't know until decades down the line if this has actually helped slow aging by some percentage. So it's a hard thing to measure. There have been a lot of tests, both with cell cultures and test tubes and on mice, which are very promising. And the few human trials most of them have been positive.
I mean, like I said, if this thing was invented 15 years ago or 7 years ago, we're not going to have the data on how it works in humans yet. But mice don't live that long.
Yeah.
So how much did this improve mice lifespans?
A fair bit, but the problem with mice and with all animals in general is that they are, well, they're different from humans.
The problem with mice is they're not people.
Yes.
Data doesn't transfer neatly. We've found a lot of ways that we can increase mouse lifespans ridiculously long. I want to say like 9 times as long, but like they don't work in humans because mice there's some systems they have that are simpler than ours.
Interestingly, and
Structured differently.
I don't remember where exactly I read this, but almost all animals have the smaller an animal is, generally the faster its heartbeat is. And
I think I know where you heard this, and I think it's bullshit. I think you heard this from, was it David Brin who joined you on the immortality panel?
Maybe, where all animals have more or less the same number of
billion
heartbeats.
heartbeats.
Yeah, was it a billion?
That's the only place I've heard it, and that sounds made up. No, I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds too neat to be made up, or too neat to be true, right?
Right.
So I'm not buying the fact that a mouse with an average lifespan or a guinea pig with an average lifespan of 5 years has a billion heartbeats. It might.
Yeah.
I mean, let's Google really quick. How fast is the guinea pig's heart rate?
From what I've read, well, not from what I've read, from what I Googled right now, that mammals, at least, all get about 1 billion heartbeats per lifetime.
Okay, well, I walk back on, was it David Brin that was on that panel with you?
It was David Brin, yeah.
I apologize, David, for putting you in my, this is obviously bullshit list person. I doubt it. I don't think he's listening.
August 1st, 2019.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a Nature article that says about 1 billion.
So, I mean, but that sounds kind of like if you can work out and get your good cardio and get your resting heart rate down to 60, then you're going to live, third or 20% longer than someone whose resting heart rate is 80?
Well, no, here's the thing. The exception to that is humans. Humans have significantly more than 1 billion heartbeats. And
well, that makes sense because 1 billion would be about 33 years if your resting heart rate's about 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
about 33 billion seconds, or about 1 billion seconds every 33 years.
Oh, so that's cool to know.
If your heart rate is a ballpark 60, then we're crushing that number by people regularly hitting their 90s.
Yeah,
and that's with occasional spikes in their heart rate.
Yeah,
and
there's
one of the I'm gonna get the side eye from Wes here for Evo Psych because one of the ideas is that humans, a lot of our comparative advantage comes from having knowledge, and the ability to use that knowledge, and that just basically increases as we get older, right up until we start actually hitting, senescence and dementia. But so humans are already optimized to exploit everything easily biological available to make us live as long as possible, which is why things like extreme calorie restriction will more than 2.5 times expand a mouse's lifespan, whereas with humans it does almost nothing. Like those pathways may already be unlocked in humans to get us where we are at this point.
There is heart rate variability, which does correlate to a lot of health and mental health, stress type things that can increase longevity. There's actually this one that I've been using, the Elite HRV monitor, which has an app paired with it, where
HV?
Yeah, the heart rate variability.
Okay. I thought you said HIV too,
gives you
so I'm glad you double checked.
Gives you a comprehensive, non-invasive snapshot of your autonomic nervous system, which is profoundly involved in your physical and mental functioning. And that's different though than the having a certain number of heartbeats per time, which all I can find is there's a Danish study that was in the journal BMJ Heart that did show that
And also a billion. It's not like
it would be amazing. Wouldn't that would be proof of intelligent design if at 1 billion heartbeats everyone just dropped
There
dead.
is some relationship between heart rate and overall life expectancy.
And that makes sense. I think that lower resting heart rate within healthy bounds is associated with good cardiovascular health, which is probably associated with longevity.
Higher pulse is correlated with a greater chance of dying. But there's the more, breaking down the complications of it's more complicated than just how many heartbeats.
But that is why lots of animal studies don't necessarily translate over to humans.
It's like beats per minute.
Humans already have unlocked, possibly, it is theorized, have unlocked a lot of things that other animals haven't. So things that work on them may not work on us because we've already got that going for us. So, but NR is the supplement NR, is what it's usually abbreviated at, nicotinamide riboside.
Nicotinamide riboside.
Thank you. Is the one that people have been using. A lot of people have been using in hopes that it'll work. There's a sexy new kid on the block, which is NMN. Is the abbreviation for it.
More letters.
Yes, right. Do you have the?
Yeah, that's nicotinamide mononucleotide.
Thank you. And that is what, once the NR is in your cells, it gets combined into the NMN, and then that is used to make NAD+, which runs the mitochondria, or which helps fuel the mitochondrial reaction anyway.
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Yes, it is. The thing is, in animal studies, the NMN can't get through the cell barrier, so your body first has to break it down into NR, then the NR goes through the cell, then it's made into M&M again, and and so a lot of people thought that just supplementing NMN directly doesn't really particularly matter because your body's gonna have to break it down into NR anyway.
That's what I'm hearing from just everything I've heard so far. That sounds like it makes sense.
I think it takes more sense to take the more bioavailable version,
right?
Or the one that's further down the chain already, like the same way that adrafinil is a prodrug for modafinil, but you have to take much higher doses of adrafinil and you don't really get anywhere near the same effects.
But there are two things. The first is that NMN has a phosphate molecule with it that NR does not have. That has to be somehow brought in through your body, so maybe eat a lot more bananas or something. Whereas if you took the NMN, they would have the phosphate in there already, and they would break it down and be there and ready to use.
So which one's better?
I don't know. Like I said, this is the sexy new kid on the block. Also, there's a study that suggests that intestinal lining in humans might be able to get the NMN directly through the cell barrier. But then there was another study that said, we're not so sure about that. Plus, it might be only in the intestines. So,
but it seems like we're fairly confident that NR might work. That has more grounding currently than
it's been around longer and it's been studied a lot more. So yes, that is why that is more confident.
So I'm going to go home and buy that one. It's me personally.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, it is up to you which one you want to buy. Either one should get you there eventually. Like I said, the NR has more research behind it, so that one is probably the better bet. Also, the NR is significantly cheaper. It's about 3 times as much to get the NMN. So, and it's not like a lot, but it adds up over the course of a lifetime, I think.
What's it cost a month?
About $50 for the NMN, whereas the NR you can get for 20-ish.
Oh, good. Okay, I was going to say, I mean, $50 wouldn't make or break the bank, but it would be annoying. $20 is couple cups of, that's like
Yeah.
one going out to dinner, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, so this is how I kind of do my literal budgeting on these sorts of things. Like my membership to the Chronics Institute is now paid off, or I got a life membership, but back when I was paying month to month, cost $4 less a month than my Netflix subscription. And even though there's pessimistically a 1% chance, optimistically a 50% chance of it working or something, the expected benefit of that is way higher than me having Netflix.
Yeah.
And so why would I not be willing to spend less than I do on Netflix on it? Yeah. Over the course of the next 5 years, I'll probably spend more on Netflix and Hulu than I will on my lifetime membership for Cryonics.
Yeah.
And so
I'm not sure if you've heard of Dr. Sinclair. He was mentioned in the email, but he's another one of the aging research guys. I'll actually post...
Often, like quoted alongside Aubrey de Grey.
Yeah, I'll post a blog of his where he talks about this specific thing, and basically everything I said just now comes from his talking points about it. But of note, he takes NMN and not NR.
Yeah, I was going to say, and
So he at least thinks it's better.
provide a little bit of free advertisement, but Nootropics Depot, it was a very good company, has nicotinamide mononucleotide tablets for $26.99 a bottle.
For how many?
For 30, so I
Okay.
believe that's a month's worth.
Yeah.
do they have the NR there for substantially less as well?
Do they? Well, let me not quote that.
All I know is that I was bummed when they stopped selling adrafinil pills.
Oh, they did?
I think so. I know that they sold the powder for a while. Oh no, maybe they still sell it. I just got annoyed because it's like $35 for 30 of them, and I like with you were just saying it's like I barely notice. I get more benefit out of a quarter of a modafinil pill than I do a 300 milligram pill of adrafinil.
Yeah, they only have the NMN, the nucleotide. And based on what, I don't know, research that I've done, like on and off, I've been following this too, and I am convinced that I don't know, my suspicion, I'm not going to say I'm convinced by I don't know. I'm updating more in the direction that the NMN is more effective, and I've been taking the Nootropics Depot one. I had actually, back when the only people selling it were Elysium, I had made a deal that I was going to start taking it at $35, because that seemed kind of expensive. I think theirs is the one that's $50 or more.
Yeah. And it comes in the fancy bottle.
Yeah, but then Nootropics Depot got it for cheaper, and I was like, heck, seems why not? If I'm going to be taking...
And the Charlie,
drugs
who
anyway.
does a fair bit of research on this sort of stuff, and she also takes NMN.
Actually, the notes that I was just referencing were part of our conversation.
Oh, nice. Cool.
And, now Charlie takes the NMN, and...
Depends on how conservative you are. I think I'm going to stick with the...
they're both going to provide benefit. It's just...
Yes.
One might be, slightly better.
And there's no way for a doctor to look at a healthy human and be like, they're 90% within the age range of 39 to 41, right?
No, especially because that varies so much between individual humans.
That sucks, because then because you've been taking this for 5 years, right?
More than that. I think it's been six and a half.
So if you were biologically exactly 38 or something, that would be so nice to know.
Yeah.
There is... Elysium is doing a clinical trial. They started it in January, so it's been going for about a year now. Yeah, hopefully we'll see some results from that, but I don't know how long it's going to go. I'm looking at the article, but it does not say the duration. Okay, I've got the clinicaltrials.gov identifier, though, so we can link to that, too, if somebody wants to dig through it.
Excellent.
Can find out more info. You could probably just find out info about the study design, though, because they're not going to publish all their details on...
So I don't know really what else much to say here other than I wish we were experts and could have given a more technical deep dive. The episode description / website for this episode will have tons of links to further reading and all these cool drugs that we're talking about. And if anyone is an expert and wants to talk about it, I'd be super interested in having them on. So
if anybody's in the field and knows anybody that can help me get in the field,
perfect.
Email me.
I would say to recap, make sure you get at least 2 hours of good exercise a week. Make sure you get as much sleep as is needed for your body to feel rested. Have a social life of some kind, even in coronavirus times.
Join the Rationalist singing thing.
Yeah.
Web app that somebody made.
Yeah.
Link to it.
And maybe supplement with NR.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the best you can do. Oh, I guess also moving away from polluted areas.
Yes. Oh, yes, that can help a lot.
We forgot to mention that, yeah.
Managing your stress can help, too.
Low stress is good.
All the things.
Pollution's terrible for your brain
Yeah.
and your longevity as a whole for your healthy brain.
Cars are bad for you.
Cars?
Yeah.
I mean, in the car, I probably don't consume that much exhaust, right?
No, I'm talking about just car accident risk.
Oh, yeah,
It's like-
absolutely.
I was
We
hoping
have
that
feedback about that I wanted to touch on before we
okay.
finish the episode.
I was hoping that when I moved here, I'd be able to like sell my car and just take the trains. I was like, yeah, there's a train system in Denver. This is great. And then
No,
like
it's not good.
after
There's,
being
quote,
here a bit,
a
I was
train
like,
system.
it's not very practical.
It's better than anything in Texas, but that's
Yeah.
not saying much.
I can't use it day to day to like.
It's
Yeah.
great.
without it being ridiculous.
It's great if you work downtown or in the Denver Tech Center and you
Right.
don't want to drive there. That's about the extent of it. So,
Yeah.
all right. So we had some feedback on car stuff. You said.
Yes, we did have a quick feedback that I wanted to hit. When we were talking about the, I think it was just last episode, about the high cost of getting a driver's license in Sweden, it turns out that their accident rate is quite a bit lower, like I think a third of the US rate, or traffic fatality rate per mile driven anyway. And so I guess...
That was a victory, from Jason.
Yes.
Quiet little ha.
Like
too polite to just laugh and point at him.
Yeah,
When
no,
I-
I feel bad about doing that.
No. I mean, when I learned that, I found that was like, I was like, okay, maybe this is like really justified and a good idea because, wow, that's a big deal. But literally the same guy who wrote to us and was complaining about how much it costs in Sweden said that he doesn't think it's necessarily worth it. He says the cost is too
Really?
damn high. Lots of jobs require a license, and it's basically an anti-economic mobility thing.
People don't die as much.
Yeah,
But that said, like, if you need a car to get to work, but it costs $4,000 to get your license, that would kind of like really fuck a lot of people, right?
Yeah,
So,
I'm not saying it's great.
Yeah,
like,
it seems
I
like there's
don't know,
trade-offs.
but it's hard for you to put Eudolons on like things, preventing people from dying.
Yeah, it'd be one,
but money also prevents people from dying. Like,
Yeah,
if you have
like,
the money
it
to
is-
go to a doctor and
Can you put the Eudolons in dollar amounts of how many like lives are saved versus how much like inconvenience the amount of money and time?
the
Like,
annoying
that would be
part
really
of
hard
car
math
deaths is that
equation.
it's not just you who you're at risk, right?
yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's whoever you hit.
Or whoever hits you. Well,
Yeah,
well,
exactly. So like, if I mean, I could be doing everything right, and then some dipshit, is drunk, crosses the median on the highway and slams into me at a combined 160 miles an hour, right? So, like, that's the bummer. Well, like to me, that's the only time I used to get angry when driving. I delivered pizzas through college, and then I realized that the difference between like rage driving to a place and like just chilling was like 3 minutes per
Yep.
trip. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to just take it easy on the road all the time forever now. And I almost exclusively do. The only time
and
I
probably
get,
less stressed, so
I-
you get to live longer.
exactly. The only time I get annoyed to the point where I will like express it or even have like basically my pulse change on the road is when someone does something dangerous. If they're going to be stupid, like, and I was driving to Fort Collins yesterday. It's a 70-mile drive. Somebody, the left lane over, 10 car lengths ahead, cuts off this big white truck and without signaling, and I just kind of point, like, look at that idiot. And, it all worked out fine. If they had crashed, my reaction would have been different. But when people do things that are risky to me and to other people, but mainly, like, if I don't see it, it doesn't get my blood going. But that's when I get mad. And I'm like, you almost fucking killed me, you
Mad
inconsiderate
on behalf
piece
of
shit.
other people. Like if I'm on the highway and I see somebody cut somebody else off, I'm like, oh, dick.
I probably say it, but it doesn't stress me out really. But and I'm not an angry person, and I'm not like a let's call people names person. But even just like imagine the situation, I'm sitting there like motherfucker.
But
because there's so much responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's because again, it's not just you.
We need the self-driving car future where everyone can
yeah.
have full mobility and not kill each other.
It's
This
just we're
sounds a
just
lot
really
like wearing
bad at
masks
long
to prevent
term.
COVID.
We're bad at long term calculuses. That's why I don't think we should be driving. It's somebody being late for work one day, is not an adequate risk to measure against dying or killing somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we certainly shouldn't if there's other options.
It's like, oh man, I'm gonna be late to the birthday party,
Yeah.
or it just seems like such a
Well, what got me was his comment saying that it's an anti-economic mobility thing, because that's a big deal. That'll impact GDP if you don't have the option to change to a better job because you don't have the mobility needed to go to a different part of town. That the difference between longevity now and longevity 50 years ago is that we have a lot more wealth and more productivity now, so less people need to be working in the coal mines and the factories, and those people can instead be working on high-tech stuff or becoming researchers or something. GDP really is important for everyone's lives and progress to continue progressing. So
Yeah, I don't disagree.
so that's a different thing. Like, how many people are we willing to trade off dying in car accidents to get, another 0.5% of GDP and maybe get to longevity escape velocity a decade sooner? I don't know.
If someone wants to try to do that math, feel free.
Yeah, and how many people and friends did we lose along the way?
At the very least, I'm confident that where the needle is pointing now is not the optimal position.
It's definitely too lax in the U.S.
Well, no, I mean, just like you mentioned, I can't be a minute late to work. Well, like a lot of people can't because they'll get fired because they've got stupid jobs. Like that norm should change. Be
I
like,
did
sorry,
get fired from a job for being late like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
wow,
a couple of times.
And it's like,
it's just like, oh, you need 3 write-ups. The woman just hated me and wanted to get rid of me, so she was like 3 minutes late, and I was just like, jeez.
And those people suck, but that's a lot of people's jobs. So like, if there's an accident on the way to work and I need to, speed the rest of the way to get there on time, a lot of people are in that position, right? So that's definitely some norms about just like society need to change around that and stuff. But
you also probably shouldn't have gotten your license when you said that you didn't stop at a single stop sign on your test.
Yeah, I guess apparently I rolled on all of them.
Yeah.
And so like, and what's funny is
it's a little too lax here.
Well, and my wife had a similar situation where I can't remember exactly what she did. She said something about like, I think there actually may have been a dog on the road or something, and she swerved erratically around it, because the first time you almost hit an animal is terrifying, right? Mm-hmm. And she still passed or something, right? And like, but her handling of that didn't result in anyone's injury, but it was reckless or something. I can't remember the specifics. So when she got back to the DMV and they're like, yep, you passed, and she's like, wait, really? Mm-hmm. She was looking at somebody who was upset, and that person didn't pass, and she's like, what did you do to fail? Like, I can't remember what, again, Rachel did, but it was just like, if apparently it's really hard to fail and somebody did, so it should be harder. I do agree. You should, like everyone,
but probably not quite to the point of
right
$2,000 of training before you can get this license.
Yeah, maybe like if there's does it have to be that expensive? Like, can they just make the test harder?
I mean, I think that's why you need the $2,000 of training, because the test is.
No, you could just drive with your parents more. Like right now,
maybe.
you get the way that it worked for me, anyways. You get your learner's permit,
get it. Yeah.
And then but the way I was gonna say it worked with me is then your parents will drive with you for 12 hours and then let you make up the other 100 and just write them down and say you did them.
My
right?
dad tried to teach me to drive in like his stick shift Jeep, which was terrible, and he was so anxious that he like wouldn't let go of the little hangy thing above the door and was yelling, oh my god, you almost hit that. So like and then my mom is a terrible driver, so she taught me how to drive incorrectly. On my driver's test I actually also passed because I parallel parked incorrectly, and like the guy was just like, okay, where'd you learn that? I was like, my mom taught me. He's like, why don't you try pulling out, and then why don't you do it that? And he talked me through the correct way of doing it, so I did it right. And he's like, okay, I guess you pass. Don't do it that way. That was dumb. I don't know what the hell your mom was thinking. I was just like, I know, right? Like,
my dad taught me to drive a stick on like one of his coworkers, like 70. It was a
the coworker eat the transmission grinding.
Well, what was fun is like this thing was like some 70s truck, and it was definitely already a junker. Like it had, I want to say 15 degrees of play on the wheel, where like you had to turn the wheel just like that had no response for several degrees before it even catch. And so like straight. So we practiced in a field, like a gravelly field in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, we're practicing on this because you can't hurt this car. So stalling it and rocking it back and forth was totally fine on it.
can't hurt the car, can't hurt the
field.
Right.
I mean, you can hurt the grass.
You also can't tip this vehicle, so go nuts. You're fine.
Yeah, I unfortunately have a couple of friends who just like never learned to drive and don't have anyone to like. I've been the person offering to be like, hey, if you ever want to like go drive some donuts around in a Walmart parking lot, get your license, do that.
Don't do it in Walmart. Go somewhere else. There's usually better vacant areas.
Well, you know what I mean.
Oh no, yeah.
It was the first large parking lot that came to mind, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking like that because I think that while practicing donuts is probably reckless. I did also a driving lesson with my dad of, hey, here's how to drift in the snow.
Right.
And so this will, and yes, while it will be fun because now you can show your friends how to drift, the important thing is like now the car's out of control and now you know what that feels like, and here's how we're going to get out of it. And so now when my car goes out of control in the snow, as it does reliably every year, I don't panic. I don't slam on the gas. I don't slam on the brakes. I find a way to try and get traction, and occasionally hit a curb, but that happens once every 4 years, right, on average or something. So point is that like the way to get good at it is to practice the basic shit of just how cars work, how roads work, all that, but then do some deliberate, careful practice under bad condition. The first time it's raining a lot out and there's the opportunity and you haven't done it before, go with your friend and say, hey, we're going to go drive in the rain when you can't see and the roads are slippery. Like, practice. And that is probably generalizable for a lot of stuff. That's why I hit the point so hard. All right.
Alrighty. Shall we thank our patron?
Yes,
Whose
I got
turn
this
is it?
week. 'cause
Wait,
it's
could
been
I do a
while.
bit?
Oh yeah.
I just want to be like, this episode brought to you by me. Hey guys, let's talk about. No, let's not. Let's
what?
talk about this person.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, yeah. Do we want to
I was just
timestamp it?
reminded of the bads of ads again last time, which
Yeah.
was like,
I mean, I almost want to go in and actually beep out the word, the
I know,
company
right?
that
Don't
you
give them
said,
any
so no one gets anything.
don't.
Actually, this
No.
episode wouldn't be possible without Dental Person, which is an awesome internet
Which is
handle.
a human.
And yes, presumably a person in the dental industry or something. Anyway, Dental Person is so we tried to put together a little sketch where we're going to pretend like we had a
I
sponsor,
don't
but
know
we
how well
don't.
that
I'm
went.
not sure that went that well. Maybe we should cut that.
We'll see if it
kind
makes
of
it through
enjoy
we'll see if it makes it through the catch.
Because like I
It'll
could
be
just
for
imagine.
patrons only.
No, I could just imagine like somebody coming across. Oh no! Oh, that just reminded me of Phoenix was telling me about a podcast where somebody tried to put some fake advertisements in their thing, and they were actually funny, like advertisements that had to do with the like there was like 3 of them. They're like this thing brought to you, and they did a little joke each time. But like what happened was the people listening to it weren't used to advertisements, and like Phoenix had the same thing where as soon as they started to like do the spiel, they just skip,
Oh.
and I'm like, man, why are there so many advertisements that start skip, and they didn't even know that they were funny jokes. They just automatically were like, no ads.
The right way to do it was how We've Got Worm did it, which is they did commercials for Fugly Bob's Burger
yeah.
Shack, which was like I think a place actually mentioned in the book at one point, and they just like pretended like it was commercials, but like
It was like the very beginning. That was where like Taylor met up with everybody when they were interviewing her to be a supervillain, and then like that was really great because Scott was just like, I wonder what's going on with Fugly Bob's right now, like with the merchants in town and like the Slaughterhouse 9 coming and like
so all the commercials would be like, and things are pretty terrible right now, but we're still open. It was stuff like that.
Oh God, is that Leviathan?
I wonder if Welcome to Night Vale, when they did their commercials, they were like always real companies, but it was
I
not a
don't
real
think they were
commercial.
actually sponsored by any of them because they
No.
were just weird, surreal shit about how like Nike sneakers, they make you float upside down.
Yeah. But like the thing is, if a corporation was to sponsor Welcome to Night Vale, I could see them being like, okay, we'll agree to sponsor
Yeah.
you, but only if we can say anything we want and just attach your name to it.
Yeah, I mean, if a advertising company was smart, that seems like a win-win.
Absolutely.
I found there's a few people that manage to make advertisements not terrible. I tend to like the McElroy brothers, and I think they usually do funny enough like gags about the ads. But I've been listening to this YouTuber Wheezy Waiter who like thanks Gen X. I like a YouTuber now. Watching that like a TV show now. But like he did a ad for Blinkist that was in the middle of he like one of his things that he and his wife try things, and that they have the series Why Do People Like X, and they were doing Why Do People Like Meal Planning, and in the middle of it he's like, okay, so now I'm going to give you a ad for our sponsor Blinkist, but also I'm going to try to do as many food puns over the course of this ad as possible so it stays in line with our cooking thing. And it was just like the pun counter was going like once a second, like
That's
somehow he
hilarious.
was managing to put he put like 47 like food puns into the
And there are definitely ways to make it less annoying, but make no mistake, our real sponsor this episode is Dental Person. Thank you so much for your support and everybody who helps keeps the lights on and lets us pay for hosting bills, equipment, and
a little extra for us.
yeah, at the end of the day, for the most part, like it goes. I used it to buy the mic I use at home for We Want More. So it's appreciated. Thank you. You guys all rock.
Yeah, I want to shout out to Luke. Somebody else has to say that.
Oh, Wukash?
Yeah, Wukash as well, who is also a patron of ours and gave us our topic.
Wukash, thank you for both your patronage and the topic. Dental Person, you are the reason that all the rest of our audience didn't have to listen to any ads today. So
And maybe why they have
Any
great
real
teeth.
ads?
any real ads, yes. And maybe why some of them have good teeth. Nice. Okay, thank you everybody. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Awesome.
good night, everybody.
Bye.